We are streaming and good to go.
Excellent. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am calling the regular council meeting to order. Today is January 5th, 2021, and I'd like to provide notice that the City Council has the ability to recess into executive session for legal advice if needed. City Clerk, can we please have roll call?
Mayor Deasy.
Here.
Councilmember Aslan.
Here.
Councilmember Daggett.
Here.
Councilmember McCarthy.
Here.
Councilmember Salas.
Present.
Councilmember Shimoni.
Hi, everybody. Present.
Councilmember Sweet.
Present.
All right. Well, I would like to have Councilman McCarthy lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and Councilman Shimoni with our mission statement thereafter. Councilman McCarthy.
I'll take my mute off. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Awesome. And the mission of the City of Flagstaff is to protect and enhance the quality of life for all.
Excellent. Well, we're now down to public participation. Public participation is an opportunity for the public to speak on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, and the council is not able to respond to any comments because the topics have not been agendized. City Clerk, do we have any public comments for today?
Looks like we do have one, and they are geared up and ready to go.
Great. Thank you. You may proceed.
Mr. Eric Koldvig, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I especially thank you because at a time when our democracy has been under attack, we in Flagstaff have a very democratic practice of having citizens like me speak to the City Council. This may seem like a small thing in the big picture, but actually it matters that we're helping to sustain our precious democratic life. So thank you for real. I'd like to speak a bit about affordable housing. MHVillage.com lists more than 20 mobile home parks in Flagstaff. That's a whole lot of people in affordable housing that we can't afford to lose, the way we lost the people of Arrowhead Village in La Plaza Vieja. Those people were thrown out of their community without adequate provision for their well-being. With pressures from gentrification inevitably rising, there will be more Arrowhead villages unless there are strong protections in place for our mobile home parks. I don't know if there are. Shame on us all collectively if there aren't. So that's a way of protecting great numbers of people in our community who live in affordable housing already. For new affordable housing, the city could provide land like the old public works yard for a land trust. The trust would own the land. People would either own their mobile homes or rent them from the land trust and lease their plot. The homes would be located densely, as in any mobile home park. The Community Foundation could help. Affordable housing is a high priority for them too. This would be a quick, effective, inexpensive way to provide new affordable housing. It's not the whole solution, but it could be part of the solution. But trailers, you might think. To consider this idea seriously, we might have to think and work with are class biases.
Mr. Koldek, I'm sorry, your time is
Feeling
up.
those biases as I speak.
Thank you for your time. I'm sorry, your
I can
3
tell
minutes
you
is
that I lived for.
Mr. Koldek, I'm sorry, the 3
yes.
minutes, the 3 minutes have concluded.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Holbrook. And that is our only public participation for now, Ms. Salzberg.
Yes, Mayor, at this time, that's the only one. We did have one other caller that we were unable to reach, so we will provide him the opportunity to speak at the last public participation tonight.
Excellent, thank you. Well, we are now down to item number 5 on our agenda, our liquor license public hearings. There are just one application for consideration, and it is staff's recommendation that we hold a public hearing and make a recommendation for the state. I will now open the public hearing. Do we have a representative of the police department to speak to this?
Yes, Mayor, thank you very much, and Council, thank you very much. I am Sergeant Ryan Turley from the Flagstaff Police Department. I'm here to answer any questions you may have regarding the application in front of you, and I believe the applicant is also present.
Excellent. Would the applicant like to speak at this time, or completely up to the applicant whether they would like to or not?
I'm all good, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chastain. All right. Council, do we have any questions or anything of our police department or the applicant at this time? All right. Well, I will now close the public hearing. Council, is there a motion?
Actually, Mayor, before you close the public hearing, you would need to invite any other members of the public. I don't know if we have anybody on the line, Stacy, for that.
Oh, my apologies. Do we have any public participants on this issue?
Not for this one, thank you.
Great, thank you, City Attorney, City Clerk. All right, we'll now close the public hearing. Council, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, this is Council Member Salas.
Thank you, Councilmember Salas.
Yeah, I move to forward the application to the State Liquor Board with the recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion from Council Member Salas. Do we have a second council member?
I will second that.
Thank you, Council Member Aslan. We have a second motion. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Any opposed? All right, that motion carries with all of us in favor. We are now down to item number 6, our consent items. Council, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as written, or is there a council member who would like to pull a consent item out for further discussion?
This is Jim McCarthy. I move that we approve items 6A and B.
All right, I have a motion from Council Member McCarthy. Do we have a second? A second by another council member.
This is Council Member Miranda Sweet, and I second that motion.
Great, thank you. We have the motion by Council Member McCarthy and a second by Council Member Sweet. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor, I do have a question. This is Councilmember Shimoni.
Yes, Council Member Shimoni.
Excellent, thank you. City manager or member of staff maybe can answer this question for me. So on 6B, on the job contracting services, I'm wondering, I'm intrigued by what we're talking about here. I think this is a good idea. I'm just wondering how often we refresh the search in the process. I know that the contracts are potentially being issued for 3 years with 2 one-year extensions, and I'm just wondering, are we reevaluating the top tier, agencies on a yearly basis, or what do you think, City Manager?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Shimoni. Mr. Rick Tatter, are you in the meeting, and would you like to speak to the procurement process behind these contracts?
I am here, but I would defer to Patrick Brown or Matt Lumen, who have been involved with this procurement.
Good evening or afternoon, Vice Mayor or Mayor Deasy, Vice Mayor Daggett, and council members. This is Matt Lumen, purchasing manager. This was my personal procurement, and we have had this program in place before for 5 years. I will try not to call you Vice Mayor Shimoni. I know that we've had a change in the guard, but one of the reasons we go for the longer term contracts is to create some continuity with the vendors so they have some dependability. But we have that opportunity at year 3, at the end of year 3, to reevaluate the process. And of course, if they're not performing over the course of the contract, we wouldn't use them anyway. And that's the benefit of having multiple contractors on this program.
Thank you for that, Mr. Luman. And I guess, so my question is, so if there's another agency in the community that could work at that higher level that we would deem appropriate, are you saying after a 3-year contract, do we reevaluate? I know there's like a top 4 for one category, top 3 for a couple categories, there's a top 2 for a couple more categories. Are we reevaluating that at the end of every contract, or do you understand my question?
I do. It would actually be reevaluated as this one was. This is the second iteration of using JOC contracts, the alternative delivery method at the city. We did this 5 years ago, as pointed out in the staff summary, and we wouldn't reevaluate it until then. Now, there is the opportunity to add new disciplines, and as you'll see in a few months, or a couple months, probably even sooner, we've also done some JOCs specifically for CARES Act funding construction at the airport. That solicitation just closed. It's strictly for horizontal and vertical construction, but specific to those contractors that can perform work on and in an airport, both for the security reasons, and it's not just laying pavement. When you put down a runway, there's a lot of specialty things there. So you'll see that come in again.
So I'm hearing like every 5 years approximately?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's say we get to the end of the 3 years and none of them are performing, or we just find that there's some significant changes we need to make to the program. Those extension options allow us to not exercise those. Sure. And then at that point, 3 years go out for solicitation again.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Manager and Mr. Lumen. I appreciate that, and I am totally in favor of efficiency, and I think this makes a lot of sense. And I was just wondering how often that renews. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Shimoni and Mr. Lemon. Do we have any other discussion from council regarding these consent items? All right, well, we did have a motion by Councilmember McCarthy and a second by Councilmember Sweet for the consideration approval of contract Wildcat Hill WRP emergency crane repair and the consideration approval of contract multiple job order contracting services contracts for upcoming projects under $1 million. Council, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? This motion carries. All right, we are making headway here. We are down to our regular agenda item number 7. This is for the consideration and adoption of resolution number 2020-01, a resolution of the Flagstaff City Council approving the First Amendment to the restated Master Intergovernmental Agreement between Coconino County, the Arizona Board of Regents, acting for and on behalf of Northern Arizona University, Coconino Community College, and the City of Flagstaff pertaining to public transit service in the greater Flagstaff area. Staff recommended actions is to read resolution number 2021-01 by title only. All right. I will turn this over to staff presentation.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I am Becky with Risk Management. Don't really have a presentation for this one other than to say that the excess market has hardened significantly for purchasing this type of insurance. So based on all of this, we are comfortable with reducing their excess insurance requirement from 30 million down to 20 million. And that's based on their frequency and of losses and exposure. And they've only had one prior loss that was significant, around $750,000. So we are comfortable with the wording and changes to this intergovernmental agreement. Are there any questions?
Have any questions from council? All right, thank you, Ms. Pinedo. All right, council, do we have a motion to read resolution number 2021-01 by title only?
Mayor, this is Jim McCarthy. I move to approve item 7A.
I second that.
And actually, just to clarify that, that's to read resolution 2021-01 by title only.
Nice job. I second that too.
Yes, that's correct. My apologies. Did I miss one of those numbers there?
No, I think it was me that wasn't clear. So anyway, I think we're clear now, though.
Okay, great. Well, it's 2021 now, and this is our first resolution, so I apologize if I might have said 2020. Great. Well, we have a motion from motion by Councilmember McCarthy and a second by Councilmember Shimoni. Is there any further discussion from council? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Ms.
A
Salzberg.
resolution of the Flagstaff City Council approving the First Amendment to the amended and restated Master Intergovernmental Agreement between Coconino County, the Arizona Board of Regents acting for and on behalf of Northern Arizona University, Coconino Community College, and the City of Flagstaff.
Thank you, City Clerk. Do we have a motion from council to adopt the resolution?
Mayor, I move to adopt resolution number 2021-01.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Second, Jim McCarthy.
Excellent. Well, we have a motion by Councilmember Shimoni and a second by Councilmember McCarthy. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. All right, we are now down to agenda item 7B. This is the consideration and adoption of resolution number 2021-02. This is a resolution for an intergovernmental agreement for emergency management mutual aid compact between the City of Flagstaff, Coconino County, Northern Arizona University, Coconino Community College District, Flagstaff Unified School District, and Northern Arizona Intergovernmental Public Transportation Authority. Staff recommendation is to read resolution number 2021-02 by title only. Do we have any staff presentation or any information on this?
I do. Hi, Mayor, DC, and council members. I just had a loud car go by, so I'll hope that we don't have any more noise behind me here. But Stacy Brecklin-Eggs, Grants and Contracts Manager, also do disaster recovery management for the city of Flagstaff. This is kind of an exciting new item. We have never had this agreement with the city, and it's new to the city of Flagstaff. Is to approve an intergovernmental agreement, or known as an IGA, between the City of Flagstaff, Coconino County, Northern Arizona University, Coconino County Community College District, Flagstaff Unified School District, and Northern Arizona Intergovernmental Public Transportation Authority. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, National Institute of Management System, really recommends local mutual aid agreements, since most jurisdictions do not maintain sufficient resources and levels to handle these extreme events independently. So mutual aid agreements provide the means for jurisdictions to supplement their resources when needed, when we have a high demand of an incident. The Arizona Mutual Aid Compact, known as AZMAC, if you've heard of it before, but that's through the state of Arizona. We went to council back in March of 2015 and approved an agreement with AZMAC to support mutual aid and coordination with local, state, and federal governments. And so this is now a mutual aid agreement, which really defines the participating parties, the terms and procedures, and for dispatching mutual aid assistance to any affected areas in accordance with local ordinances, resolutions, emergency plans, and other agreements. The agreement is for dispatching mutual aid assistance among local agencies and emergency responders to lend assistance across jurisdictional boundaries, and provides assistance before, during, and after an emergency event to facilitate that rapid mobilization of personnel and equipment and other supplies that are really needed during an emergency operation center event or an emergency event. The agreement is for an initial 5-year period and may be renewed for 2 additional 5-year periods. And so with that, I'll answer any question. And I'm not sure if Chief Gaylord with the fire department is on with us. He's our emergency manager with the city of Flagstaff. So if I can't answer a question, I'm sure he can. Thank you.
Oh, Mayor, muted.
Mayor, I think you're on mute.
I normally leave my mute off all the time, so I always forget when I actually put it on there. Council, do we have any questions for Mrs. Breckler-Neggs? And thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up. Council, do we have a motion? Do we have an motion to read resolution number 2021-02 by title only?
So moved, Mayor Jim McCarthy.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember McCarthy. I will go ahead and second that motion. Is there any further discussion from council? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries.
A resolution of the Flagstaff City Council approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Arizona Board of Regents for and on behalf of Northern Arizona University, the City of Flagstaff, Coconino County, Coconino County Community College District, Flagstaff Unified School District, Northern Arizona Intergovernmental Public Transportation Authority.
Thank you, City Clerk. I'll go ahead and a motion to adopt. Do we have a second from council?
Second.
Was that Councilmember Aslan?
Yes, it was, Mr. Mayor.
All right, excellent. Thank you. I have a motion by myself and seconded by Councilmember Aslan. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously to adopt resolution number 2021-02. We are now down to agenda item number 7C, and this is the consideration and adoption of resolution number 2021-04, resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Flagstaff and Flagstaff Unified School District for community-wide after-school programs. Staff recommend actions to read resolution number 2021-04 by title only. I'll turn this over to our city staff.
Yes, hi again, Mayor DC. Stacy Breckler, and welcome council. Happy New Year to you all. This item is to approve the intergovernmental agreement with Flagstaff Unified School District, or FUSD, for the community-wide after-school program. But you've also heard this known as FACS, which stands for Flagstaff and Community Training for Students. So it's also called the FACS program. The city has a long-standing relationship with FUSD, with the school district, and also with the coalition, Coconino Coalition for Children and Youth for the after-school program, which has supported the initiative since 1999. Sorry for the noise. The program was created to provide children and youth for life skills and enrichment and academic support in a safe and drug-free environment. The recent IGA expired June 30, 2020. However, this new agreement took us a little bit of time to revise and review with staff and legal with each agency, but the IGA is, the intergovernmental agreement is effective beginning July 1 if approved. The agreement is for a maximum of 5 years with annual renewals subject to the annual budget appropriations. In addition, the agreement is on a reimbursement basis in the amount of $291,988, and that amount is split between the school district and the amount of $272,319, and then the coalition will receive $19,699, and this amount is on an annual contribution. The funds were used for implementation or operational and administrative costs, including salary for the school district after-school program executive director, also funds the executive director for the Coalition for Children, and both of whom function as full-time employees under the school district. There has been some costs incurred during fiscal year 21, which is July 1 to June 30 of 21. And the school district has hosted several online after-school programs, and costs have had some labor for the executive director and the assistant coordinator. And then with that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Frank Garcia and Travis Drake. They're both with the school district that oversee the after-school program. And I'd like to invite them to share any additional information about the program and answer any questions that we may have. So Travis and Frank, if you're online.
Well, I can start. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council, for allowing us the opportunity to speak today in regards to this resolution. We are hoping to have this resolution approved so that we can continue to provide high quality after school programming for all of our students in the city. You don't necessarily have to be a district student to be in FACS. You can enroll if you're not. And Travis runs a super high quality program. And we are very proud of the offerings that he's able to provide. COVID has thrown us a curveball, as it has everyone, but we have been able to provide some services to students in after-school programs. And I'll let Travis go ahead and expand on that a little bit.
Certainly. Thank you guys for all hearing me. I appreciate that. The programs that we're running currently are a tutoring program after school for students. As you all may know, the students do struggle with the new online learning format. So we're hoping to offer tutoring, and we have been offering tutoring all year to students and to help them kind of bridge that gap as they struggle with their understanding. And then we've also been able to offer some enrichment programs, the primary one being a band and choir program. We normally run that during the year, but we've been able to continue to run that online this year, and that's through our Secret FACS program. And then obviously we were we are always prepared to get back going as soon as the district opens it up and we're able to bring flags back into the schools.
So if there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer those now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drake and Mr. Garcia and Ms. Breckler-Nags. Council, do we have any questions? Well, I guess I would like to know a little bit, how many students are typically served by these after-school programs?
The typical service for the after-school program is around 700 the last school year. And it's changed year to year, obviously. We've seen reduced enrollment in the district, so we've gone down similarly, though not at the same rate as the district has gone down. So we've actually kept more students within the program than percentage-wise would suggest we would keep with the production students for the district.
That's excellent. Thank you. Council, do we have any questions?
Mayor, we've put our question markers in the chat, just to let you know.
Yeah, I'm having some technical difficulties. For some reason, none of the stuff in the chat is showing up on my computer. That's why I blanked out for a second there. So 1 second here and I'll get some of that. But my apologies temporarily until I figured this out. Please just call out, wave a hand, turn on your video, and I'll call you. So I apologize that I'm not seeing it in the conversation. So Councilmember Shimoni, if you'd like to go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Garcia and Mr. Drake, for joining us and your work with the after-school programs. Very, very, and Ms. BK, good to see you, and thank you for your presentation. My question is, I know that when COVID began, I kind of wrestled with this idea a little bit of the FACTS program and where those funds were going to if there was no after-school program in place. Can you speak to, I know, Mr. Drake, you talked about band and such being offered, and 700 students typically being served. There's a decent amount of background noise. But basically, my question is, how many folks are being served throughout COVID in the after-school programs?
Through the online programs, the numbers are much lower, around 50 kids only. Obviously, we have fewer staff that are required to do that. And the agreement is on a basis where only those staff and costs that are actually utilized will be paid out. So, but yeah, only about 50 students, unfortunately, right now. And most of our time is spent on those online classes, and those have a much lower ratio. The most I allow is a 5-to-1 ratio, so we don't overwhelm any single tutor.
Okay, is there other efforts in place to try to figure out ways to, provide after-school programming? I know that's so desperately needed today and so difficult, but what are your thoughts?
I think that with the amount of programming that Travis is offering, a couple of things that we struggle with. One is by the end of a school day, we would have to, anything that we would offer would be virtual. And one of the things that we do experience with kids is that screen burnout at the end of the day. Our 21st century programs are experiencing the same sorts of things where they're having trouble recruiting kids into those 21st century after school programs, which actually Travis also partners with to try and supply after school programming to kids. And so we do make a concerted effort to try to provide as much programming as we can, given the challenges that we have. We also have a little bit of difficulty trying to recruit kids who are willing to, and families that are willing to spend even more of their day in this kind of interaction with the screen. So that's been a significant challenge for us. But like Travis said, the payouts that we do are on a billing system. So at the end of each quarter, our office bills the city for the services provided, and the city pays us only the amount that we've used.
I really appreciate that clarity, and obviously I really appreciate the work y'all are doing, so thank you. I just really feel for the kiddos today. I know they're really struggling, and they so desperately need that face-to-face, and they are burnt out, like you said, Mr. Garcia. But I did not realize that we were built on a pay-as-you-go kind of billing situation. So that's good to know. Thank you, and thank you, Mayor.
I had a question. I think I was next in line.
Yeah, thank you. We're still working on the technical difficulties. It's not. We did a test the other direction. It's not working, but yes, please, Councilwoman Sweet. Just so you're aware, we're working on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to mention that my family utilized the FACTS program for 10 solid years, and I'm so thankful that it is such a great quality program for the families. My question is, are there any changes from past city and FUSD agreements moving forward that we know of?
I might be able to answer. Are you, and hi, Councilmember Sweet, Stacey Breckland-Eggs. And this agreement has been in place since, well, I said the initiative started in 1999. We really have not had a lot of changes. It's really based on budget appropriations every year that we get and the council approves to fund this program. But I would say that since that time and looking back at the IGAs, there has not been a significant change in any of them. So nothing, if that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Council, do we have any other questions? All right. Is there a motion to? Is there a motion by council members?
Mayor, Regina Salas has a motion.
Yes. Hi, Mr. Mayor, I'm ready to make a motion to read resolution number 2021-04 by title only.
Thank you, Councilwoman Salas. We have a motion by Councilmember Salas. Do we have a second from council?
This is Councilmember Sweet, and I second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Sweet. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. City Clerk.
A resolution of the Flagstaff City Council approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Flagstaff Unified School District and the City of Flagstaff to provide community-wide after-school programs.
Thank you, City Clerk. Do we have a motion to adopt resolution number 2021-02?
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember Salas. I make a motion to adopt resolution number 2021-04.
Second, McCarthy.
All right, we have a motion to adopt by Councilmember Salas and a second by Councilmember McCarthy. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. I'm going to need to take my apologies being this early on, but a 10-minute break so that way I can figure out the technical issues that we're facing, because I was wondering why it was so quiet in the comment chat on the side, but I haven't been able to see everyone's comments. So it is 3:39. Let's be back at 3:50. Again, my apologies to everyone. We'll get this worked out. Thank you, City Clerk. Looks like we're good to go, and I'm hoping that we don't have another technical issue, but Mr. Perry has been kind enough to figure out what the issue was. So hopefully I can make sure everyone's getting the attention they need for comments and motions and everything to help the process out here. Anyways, we are now down to agenda item number 8, which is our council liaison reports. So I will open it up to council if you have any reports. I'm not sure if we've had much going on the last couple weeks, but.
Mayor, if I can interrupt, I'm sorry. This is Stacy. We do have one more item under the regular agenda, 7D.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, my apologies. Jumping the gun here. Getting excited, too excited to get back on. All right, well then, yes, we are on agenda item 7D. This is the consideration and adoption of resolution number 2021-03. A resolution of the Flagstaff City Council approving an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Flagstaff and Coconino County, establishing maintenance and operation responsibilities and an extended warranty period for a segment of the Sheep Crossing Foots Trail. And I will turn this over to city staff.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the council, David Peterson, Capital Improvements Project Manager. I have a short presentation on the Sheep Crossing Foots Trail IGA. This context map shows the trail project shown by the green circle here down in the southern periphery of the city limits, just northwest of the Pulliam Airport. At a larger scale, the trail is shown in its entirety with the yellow line. The red box is drawn around to show the denotation of the trail on county land. So this is the area that we're discussing today. The points of this IGA are really memorializing a 2-year warranty between the city and Kinney Construction Services, which the warranty covers the defects in any craftsmanship or materials used during the construction project. And this was effective as of December 18th of 2020. Again, the IGA is between the city and the county. And the other main point of this IGA is that it really establishes that the county's operation and maintenance of the county portion of the Sheep Crossing Foots Trail in perpetuity. This picture shows the western end of the tunnel with the southbound Highway 89A Beulah Boulevard behind the guardrail. This picture shows well the dark sky compliant exterior lighting that's on both the eastern portal and the western portal, as well as the foot safety fence leading into the tunnel. This bench is located on the eastern end of the trail on Forest Service lands, and it really symbolizes the teamwork and successful communication of the project. From completing the NEPA work with environmental systems and the time and dedication of a myriad of Forest Service staff to the expertise and recommendation of city parks and transportation planning, the bench is a success and a testament. In a typical year, in the midground of this picture, there's water in Interstate Tank, which really attracts year-round interest. I know I've driven by here and seen in years past groups of figure skaters and ice skaters out there as well. So it's truly a place where one can sit and just meditate and enjoy nature. Inside the tunnel, working with ADOT, the team was able to successfully integrate the dual box tunnels under both I-17 and Highway 89A Beulah Boulevard. Having traveled through this tunnel copious times over the last 4 years of me being involved in this project, the transformation is really incredible. Today, there are auto-adjusting lights inside for day and nighttime use. There's a trench drain here along the left side of the trail that drains any moisture that gets inside the tunnel, as well as some incidental moisture on the west side of the tunnel coming in here. We also have this really neat metal conduit up here, which is actually a heated weep hole drain system. So the natural weeping of the concrete is captured and deposited into this trench drain as well. This last picture shows the eastern portal. So this is looking westward towards I-17 and Beulah and 89A in the background. This shows a great shot of the grade separation crossing here and the safe passage underneath the interstates, as well as picturing the colored integrated concrete that was used throughout the project. As you can see, the tonality of the concrete really matches well to the landscape. And it's really my joy to thank the many partners that made this project not only possible, but successful. I would not be here today, certainly, if it wasn't for, at a minimum, the partners that are listed on this slide. It truly took a village to complete this, and I want to extend my sincere thanks to this collective wisdom, knowledge, and just plain incredible skills of our partners that were involved here. Thank you to the community for your patience as we constructed the connecting trail, and to City Council for approving this project. With that, if there's any questions, I'm happy to entertain them at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. This is really excellent. Councilmember Aslan has a comment.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thank you so much. I, as a resident of Ponderosa Trails and a user of the Sheep's Crossing, I just wanted to extend my personal gratitude and some testimony about the use of this tunnel by our family to get to Fort Tuttle nowadays. I understand there's still some items left to be done with construction, but even during this whole construction phase, we've been very excited to see this coming together, and really excited for the future use of this new amenity for the community. And this is a nice safety feature as well. It keeps cyclists and pedestrians off of the overpass, the I-17 overpass, over John Wesley Powell. And it's just a really picturesque, fun amenity to use, and very much looking forward to not having to slog through mud and sludge to get to the others, to get to Fort Tuttle anymore on our bicycles. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Aslan. Councilmember McCarthy.
Well, thank you, Mayor. This is a very good project. I'm very happy to support it. I just wanted to point out one little nitpicky technicality in the staff report. It says that it's only that the foot trails are only for non-motorized users. I just like to point out that electric motorbikes are allowed on all our foot trails except with two minor exceptions.
Thank you, Councilmember McCarthy. I have a comment from Councilmember Shimoni.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just wanted to acknowledge all the partners and everyone that worked on this. Wow, that's an incredible list. And I think y'all did a really good job, and I'm grateful for that effort. So thank you all.
I had one other question, if I may.
Yes, Councilmember.
As last time I was over there, I hadn't seen asphalt laid on or whatever that substrate is that much of the foots consists of. Is that still one of the finishing products that needs to be laid out, or is that going to remain compact dirt?
Councilmember Aslan, the surface to the trail is complete. It's a decomposed granite that follows a city engineering spec. It's actually been reviewed by many projects and many people to find an aggregate that fits the testing standards that we have for the trail. There will be no more asphalt. There is several sections of concrete, as you are well aware, having traveled the trail. On the eastern portion is a low flow crossing, which is concrete, and leading in and out of the trail for tunnel, for approximately 100 or so feet on both the east and west ends are concrete. And then there's a concrete section where it ties into the Sinclair Wash Foots Trail on the western terminus.
Okay, thank you. I'll stop waiting for that or expecting that to happen at some point. And that compact granite is resistant to erosion, I presume.
Councilmember Aslan, according to our standards, it's the best product that we can determine at the time of design with this project to resist erosion as much as possible. That is correct.
Thank you.
And I do believe we have another comment from Councilmember Shimoni.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry about that. Mr. Pedersen, I have a quick question for you. This might be for someone at staff, not for you, but with the benches that we put in, is there any way we can partner with, I believe it's Stronger as one. It might be a different agency. Someone correct me if they know what I'm talking about. It's Clay and his agency. I forget what they're called. And they basically have these little plaques that they put on benches that have the national suicide hotline number, and they have some positive wording and messaging. And it's just something that I think we should integrate into every bench we put out. And I know that I believe, might even have funding, but I do see Amy
put up a comment. Maybe she has more information.
Yeah, Miss Hagan, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Hi, Councilmember Shimoni. Yes, I actually have about 10 of those signs that you're referencing in my office, and this could be one of those ideal locations. Getting ready with staff to pick those 10 new locations, and the urban trail is the perfect example of where we'll place those.
Awesome, perfect. Thank you.
That's excellent. Council, do we have any other comments or questions? All right. Do we have a motion? Vice Mayor Daggett has put the starting motion. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Councilmember Aslan seconds that motion. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor, I'm sorry, this is Stacy Salzberg. Could I please have Vice Mayor Daggett verbalize that motion, please?
I move that we read resolution number 2021-03 by title only.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have our motion from Vice Mayor Daggett and a second by Councilmember Aslan. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. City Clerk.
A resolution of the Flagstaff City Council approving an intergovernmental agreement between Coconino County and the City of Flagstaff, establishing maintenance and operation responsibilities and memorializing an extended warranty period for a segment of the Sheep's Crossing Foots Trail.
Thank you. And we have the staff's recommendation action to adopt resolution number 2021-03. Do we have a motion? Oh, Mr. McCarthy has motioned, and we have a second from Vice Mayor Daggett.
So I move to adopt resolution 2021-03.
Thank you, Councilmember McCarthy. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Well, that motion carries unanimously.
Just for the record, Becky Daggett made the second on that.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember McCarthy.
Just so there's no confusion at all.
Yes, thank you. Well, we are down to agenda item number 8. Again, it's our council liaison reports. Council, do we have any reports to give for the last couple weeks? I don't think there's been many, the commission meetings. So if you want to just put an in or an in there just so we know, then that would be great. Except Councilmember Salas, do you have something?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Last week on December 23rd, we had our Flagstaff Sister Board meeting. Of course, we have the mayor graciously met our board and looking forward to searching for our sister city in other countries pretty soon. And then on next Wednesday, the Tourism Commission will have its annual retreat, which will be done through Teams. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Salas, and I really appreciate the hard work you've been putting in with the sister cities, and I'm really excited about the prospects of moving forward with it. So thank you. And I'm not seeing anyone else with any council liaison reports. So we are now down to agenda item 9, the city manager report. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Vice Mayor and Council. These meetings are going smoothly, and I want to commend everybody for your efforts. No easy feat in the virtual world. So thanks to all. Here we are in the new year. My report is actually dated at the end of last year. And just a recap of a number of things. And in usual fashion, I do not belabor what's in the report. It's there for your reading enjoyment. All this is intended to be informational and updates that you typically do not see in your council meetings or through other means. We try to keep it interesting. In this report, there's a rather heartwarming story about an effort by our fire department. I would invite you to give that a read. Very symbolic of the holiday season and the gift of giving. Some updates with respect to human resources, a number of updates with respect to our police department. Again, some heartwarming stories, especially with the toy drive and outcomes of that. You have some updates with respect to Public Works, including a couple of photos and a narrative as to how things are going in Heritage Plaza downtown with the recently placed gazebos. Thank you to the expanded use of rights of way team. We call that the Euro team in short. A nice consortium and some good things coming out of that team. That team met this morning and they are staying busy looking ahead, ensuring that the social distancing capabilities downtown and elsewhere throughout the community, and those facilities, by the way, are getting used. Some nice updates from sustainability, and then a summary of some recent meetings that have occurred. I will not go into those details, but they're there for your reading enjoyment. I would invite you to give a nice or a read to a very nice report that comes to you monthly, and that is the engineering section of the Community Development Division. As of now, it is a standalone division, the Engineering and Capital Improvement Division. And in these monthly updates, you have nice summaries of all the projects that are underway. For example, the one that was just talked about this evening or this afternoon, the Foots Trail underpass, a number of others. They include aerials, they include maps and graphics and depictions of what is being performed. I think it's of high relevance and a nice summary of things that are keeping that group and many other groups quite busy. So these reports will come to you monthly, and they'll be appended to my report as it is this time around. Council, Mayor, Vice Mayor, any questions of me?
Councilmember Shimoni has a question.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Manager. Great report as usual. Always appreciate it. And yes, I really enjoyed the capital improvement project's 36-page report. I loved every page. It was really interesting to me, actually. And I was especially excited about the Lockett 4th Street roundabout, and knowing that that's been a trouble area for a long time. I was just wondering, maybe at a future conversation, maybe we can dive into those plans a little bit and just have a discussion about how we're best supporting the pedestrian navigate that crossing, especially given that it's around the school. Just a thought, but I'm very excited to see progress on that front, and I know the community will extremely appreciate that when that is said and done. But yeah, excellent report, and thank you, Mayor and City Manager.
Thank you, Council Member. If I have Rick Barrett or Jeff Bowman or anybody who would like to speak briefly to the roundabouts pedestrian crossing question, I think Rick Barrett is queued up to give you an answer. Good afternoon, Rick.
Good afternoon, City Manager Clifton, and good afternoon, Council, Mayor DC, and Council Member Shimoni. Thank you for the question. I would note that we have had a reach out from Council Member McCarthy, had a similar concern. We look forward to getting this item in front of Council. We have some exciting options that we've been looking into, And we are looking forward to getting some direction from council as to what might be a preferred solution at that intersection. So you can expect that coming to a council work session in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Barrett. And again, thank you for the report.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Vice Mayor and Councilmember Shimoni for the question.
Excellent. Do we have any other questions or comments for council? From council. All right. Well, I guess I will also echo I really appreciate these city manager reports, and I really enjoyed the capital project report as well. It's very helpful, and I'm very appreciative of it. So I think we are now on to agenda item number 10, COVID-19 updates. City staff.
Good afternoon, Mayor Deasy, Vice Mayor, and members of the council. This is Andy Bertelson. I'm your Public Works Director. I'm filling in for Shannon Anderson this evening, who you are used to hearing from on these COVID updates. Shannon is taking a much-needed break with her family. And so Rebecca Sayers is going to be driving this presentation. And if you know Rebecca and I, you know we're normally a pretty good tag team. So with that, we will get started with our COVID update presentation. Rebecca is loading that presentation, but I'll just take a bit to talk about what you will be hearing this evening and who you will be hearing from. So I'm going to start with the data. And that data is collected through Coconino County Health and Human Services, so the dashboard, and it's really the data that we've been relying on during this entire COVID experience. It's what we have to work with, as well as some data from the Arizona Department of Health Services, Northern Arizona Healthcare, the hospital census, and then you will be hearing from Rose Tohi on both the Navajo Nation and Hopi tribe data, and Rose will be giving an update on the indigenous nations. You will also be hearing, we were able to, Kim Musselman is our incident commander for the COVID experience for Coconino County, and she will be able to be here. She might not be able to be here until about 5 o'clock, as she's actually giving an update to her Board of Supervisors today. But when she joins us, she is going to be able to give us some information on vaccination distribution, et cetera. And also we'll be hearing from our Northern Arizona University reps, Josh Mayer and Christy Farley, Vice President. So we're excited to hear from our community partners. And also a person that really needs no introduction in our community, Dr. David Engelthaler. He is the director of TGen North and the scientific director for their COVID diagnostics lab. He's also an associate professor of pathogen genomics at the Translational Genomic Research Institute. And in his previous capacity, Dr. Engelthaler was our state epidemiologist and state biodefense coordinator for Arizona. So we're really fortunate to have Dr. Engelthaler with us this evening. So with that, Rebecca, next slide, please. The data. So let's get into the data a little bit. And as we know, we are starting the new year, coming out of our holiday season. And what we obtained from the Coconino County Health and Human Services group is this weekly COVID-19 cases by geographic region. The blue line is Flagstaff, orange, Page, green, tribal communities, and then other areas. And you can see, looking at Flagstaff specifically, the cases were down after the peak of November and then back up slightly this last reporting period ending on January 2nd. So this is the most up-to-date data that we have. We see a peak essentially at the end of November in weekly cases, down a bit and now back up with this recent reporting period. Next slide, Rebecca. Next is daily case counts by geographic region. And you can see that the trend line is up in daily cases following December 25th. through the end of the month and the remainder of the year. So we can see that that daily case count was up significantly during that period. Next slide, Rebecca. Now we're weekly case counts among Coconino County residents. With this one, the most recent data that we have is ending in December 26th. While somewhat fluctuating, hospitalizations have been up since mid-November with a peak of 40 for the week ending on 12/26. Next slide, Rebecca. The next one is obtained, this chart is obtained through the Coconino County Health and Human Services Update Report as of January 4th. This is through, I believe, their school updates, and it really measures bed availability. With that, you see both the number and percentage. I went back and looked at the report as of December 18th. So for the Flagstaff Medical Center, for example, the emergency department bed availability, the number here reported is 10. At that time, we had 0 beds available in that particular area. 31 med surge compared to 28 with this reporting period. And so those numbers fluctuate, but we'll see in a bit when we look at the numbers for the Northern Arizona Healthcare Hospital Census, and I'll also give you the comparison and also give you the numbers from the previous reporting period. Next slide, Rebecca. So this is a number that we certainly don't like to track, but it's a number that we have provided in our reports historically, and that is the weekly COVID deaths among Coconino County residents. And the last reporting period that we have is week ending December 26th. You can see at the end of November was really the highest number at 10.4 with the most recent reporting period. Next slide, Rebecca. Thank you. Community transmission. So this is an indicator that the Coconino County Health and Human Services looks at along with the dashboards that they obtain from the Arizona Department of Health Services. So really the percentage of testing positive, 14.4%. Anything above 10% is considered substantial. So we are still, as a community, in that substantial level of community transmission. Anything below 10% is considered moderate. Again, we are above that 10% number and above that cases of 100 number. So the next slide, Rebecca, you'll see the Arizona Department of Health Services, their dashboard. Now, with this dashboard, what I learned quickly with this one is there's quite a lag in reporting. By that, the last numbers, the last data release is December 13th. I obtained this information as of December 31st, or we obtained this information. Their last mark that they use for reporting in that lag time is December 13th. That said, they remain, and this is for Coconino County. So on that website, if you're able to go to it and kind of look at that data, you can look at it specifically for Coconino County, the northern region, and with that data that we're showing for business reopening, we are still in the substantial status. Next slide, Rebecca. Now, this is the Flagstaff Medical. I obtained this data from their website yesterday as of January 4th. The last report that we as staff provided to you, City Council, was December 21st. With the hospital census, we were at 184, so 195, slightly up in our current reporting period. The number of positive cases as of December 21st was 47. You can see with this slide, we're at 61, so up slightly. Also on December 21st, we had 4 pending cases. We currently have 7. And so an indicator there in comparison from December 21st to current, positive cases are up slightly as reported by Flagstaff Medical Center. Next slide, Rebecca. So with this slide, I am going to turn it over to Rose Tohi to give the Indigenous Nations data. Are there any questions of council on the data that we have just reported?
Thank you, Mr. Bertelsen. Council, do we have any questions? All right,
Thank you,
I
Mayor
think
Deasy.
and turn it over to Ms. Tohi. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Just wanted to say we wish you the best, or we wish ourselves and the city the best of 2021. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the Indigenous Nations data. As far as Navajo Nation is concerned, and this is also including the last report that I had given to you, which included December 17th. And then as of yesterday, the 3rd, these are the numbers for Navajo Nation. So you can see that the testing has increased by 17,896 within those 17 days. The negative, of course, cases are around 13,663. The confirmed positive cases have increased to over 3,333 in that same time frame. The recoveries are still going up. The death rate is at 87 for currently. So in those 17 days, these are some of the numbers that we have. Go ahead and go on to the Hopi tribes. And now as for Hopi, the main ones I want to point to are the positive cases, and that has increased by 153. And for the small tribe that Hopi is, that's a significant number. And again, they don't keep track of the death rates. So I just want to remind you on that. And then the tribal members have increased by 169. So just the difference between the positive case and the Hopi tribal member number, that is because that there are some testing that's done outside of the Hopi health center or health clinic. And so that's the reason why the number is different, but they always keep track of where the testing is coming from, and they always include those numbers with the total. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tohi.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and do the Navajo Nations. As far as the public health emergency stay-at-home order, that has been issued to the end of December 28th, but was extended to the 4th as of.
Okay, so that brings up the question with regards to a wait list. Do we want?
Am I still on?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh.
yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So that has been extended to Monday, the 4th, and at 5, but there's no updates as to what has happened beyond that, at least as of yesterday when I collected this information. And then also on 12/30, December 30th, Indian Health Services is also reported to be prioritizing administration of the vaccine to healthcare personnel in the clinical setting, and also residents of the long-term care facilities. So we refer to Indian Health Services as IHS. So the IHS Navajo area has received around 11,800 doses of the vaccine, and also another 11,700 to be set aside to provide the second doses to those individuals. So, and then they're also anticipating receiving additional doses as well. And then as far as the press release that was released on January 3rd, in reference to the CARES Act funding, the Navajo Tribal Utility Authority has completed CARES Act funded projects that have brought electricity to 713 homes so far, which according to NTUA, it exceeded its goal of 510. So that's good news. So there's at least some of those water that's going into the homes that's needed for the COVID sanitary type things for that. And then also NTUA also continues to make progress with the different water cistern projects, and as well as the residential solar unit installations, and also the water point improvements and other constructions, including broadband and the cellular target tower projects. So that's what I have for Navajo Nation. And then if you can go to Hopi, and then with the Hopi, the tribe had issued also a 20-day lockdown and curfew order, which started on December 23rd, lasting until, and it's going to last until January 11th at 5 a.m. So a daily reservation-wide curfew is in place from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. each day. And then they're saying that masks must be worn at all times when in the public. And then also residents are restricted to or from gathering with individuals outside their home. So those are the same things that are still in place. And Hopi also reports on December 29th their cumulative positive COVID cases for Hopi tribal members has increased. And currently there are at least 150 active cases on Hopi, and widespread community transmission is reported across all villages. And then also because of COVID-19 and out of the caution for community, the Hopi Junior High School and Senior High Schools have canceled all winter season sports for the 2020-21 school year as well. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tohi. Sorry, who do we have next on our presentation list?
Thank you so much, Rose. Mayor Deasy, next we have Kim Musselman, and she is the incident commander managing the Emergency Operations Center for the COVID experience with Coconino County Health and Human Services. Kim was just able to join our meeting, and here she is. She just gave a presentation to the Board of Supervisors, so thank you so much, Kim, for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Deasy and Council. Appreciate the opportunity to join you. I do have some slides that I'd like to share. If you will just give me a minute to share my presentation.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, can you all see that?
Yes.
Great. Yep. Thank you. I know that Andy went over the data, so I'm not going to go back into that. And so if you'll just indulge me for a moment, I'm going to skip ahead through some of these because I know he's reviewed with you. I did want to just briefly share, this is something that I just shared with the Board of Supervisors as well as others, because a lot of the information Andy was sharing on those charts are from our weekly report, which is available and published every week on Fridays, although the last two holiday weekends, it was published on Monday. But I just wanted to quickly share that while our highest week of record was the December 5th week ending at that 924 positives in Coconino County, and we had been seeing, slight decreases, still, exponentially high numbers. Just wanted to point out that already for our week ending January 2nd, which we'll be publishing that report on Friday, that data is still coming in, and we're already, as of day before yesterday, up at that 777. So, clearly climbing back up, which unfortunately is not too shocking, but of course continues to be disappointing. So with that, I just wanted to share a little bit with respect to continued testing. I think most of you are aware what we're doing at our county operation at the Fort Tuthill operations in partnership with ASU saliva-based testing. We continue to operate that testing at Fort Tuthill Monday through Friday, 10 to 3, and then on Saturday from 8 to 12. On Saturday it is saliva-based testing only. On those other dates, we are also offering nasopharyngeal, what we enduringly refer to as NP testing on those dates. But one piece of new information that is important for you all to know and to share with your constituents and others, and we are messaging this as well through county social media, website and other, is that there will be no NP swabbing available at Fort Tuthill on January 7th, and subsequent weeks when we are out doing our remote testing events around the other communities in Coconino County, because our HHS staff, nursing staff and medical staff that assist us, we are spread very thin right now. We obviously have medical staff conducting vaccinations, which I have much information on, a bunch of information to share with you, as well as the testing. So on those dates that we are going mobile, we are not going to have NP testing on those dates at Fort Tuthill. The other exciting news with respect to testing, and I know NAU is here today as well, and we'll be talking to you all, but we're super excited that they're going to be resuming their testing starting January 6th. So this Wednesday back at the NAU Field House, that will be saliva-based testing. Their hours are going to continue to be 9 to 2, Monday through Saturday, which is great because this again provides a location for not only NAU population, but also our other community members who may need to take the bus, other walking or cycling related needs to show up on site. Fort Tuthill does have some limitations with respect to convenience. So we're excited about that. And it will need to be, again, pre-registration for that saliva-based testing. That is a requirement of ASU's laboratory. And I'm sure NAU will share more information with respect to the registration for that. And then we will also share their information on our website and our social media with respect to the entire public for testing. So then, unless there's any questions about that, I'd actually like to move on and give a vaccine update where we're at, if that is okay, Mayor Deasy?
Mayor, you're muted. I'm sorry.
Oh, goodness. One of those days. Council, do we have any questions regarding the testing before moving on to the vaccine update? I'm not seeing anything, so yeah, please continue. Thank you.
Thank you. So just want to say how excited I am to be standing before you today to know that we began our phase 1 vaccination efforts yesterday at Fort Tuthill. Prior to that, our partners who received vaccination the last 2 weeks of December, including Northern Arizona Healthcare, FMC, Page Banner, and also North Country Healthcare, had started vaccinating prior to yesterday, but we did open the Fort Tuthill site yesterday and had vaccinated over 200 people yesterday. We have over 1,000 registrants in priority group 1A that are scheduled this week. Next week, we have up to 1,000 appointments that we can fill, and almost all of next week is filled as well. And into the subsequent weeks, we vaccinated 52 HHS clinic staff and testing site staff last week on the 30th and 31st to test our system and make sure we were ready to go. And things have been running incredibly smooth. Hopefully some of you got to see some of the communication that was put out on social media yesterday, having some conversations with some of the medical staff that showed up to be vaccinated and them holding up signs indicating why they have chosen to be vaccinated. So we were super excited about this rollout. We have also just gotten information, and initially we were going to get the Pfizer vaccine and Moderna, and at the last minute, at the end of the month, in the last couple of weeks, we got noticed we weren't going to be eligible for Pfizer, or we weren't going to get it. They were going to reallocate our distribution. And just this week, and in fact today, we just got our first one tray of 975 doses of Pfizer vaccine. It was actually just delivered today. Our partner TGen, who I know you're going to be hearing from, Dave Ingolthaler here a little bit later as well. They have provided the storage space in partnership with us. And so we are in the process of working out how we're going to work that into our distribution, because initially we'd intended to keep so that we only had one vaccine type at a time going on at a particular site. So we're working out those details as we speak. Wanted to share that the county's allocation for phase 1A has increased to just over 8,600. We get updated information from the state on a pretty much almost a daily basis. What this means is that is first doses with guaranteed second doses. We are slowly starting to receive those second doses that match that number that we're going to be tracking so that we have those second doses available when the time frames after that 28 days with Moderna has been reached and they're eligible for the second dose. We continue to order weekly, and to date, we have drawn down from that 8,600. We've requested 7275 vaccines are on order, most of which have been received by us and our partners, again, over the course since we've been distributing vaccines since the latter 2 weeks of December. We are currently in phase 1A, and in just a moment, I'm going to show you a new graphic that is already on our website and also actually just went out on social media at about 4 o'clock today to bring us in compliance with the executive order in terms of prominently displaying our vaccination information and a new dashboard to display the number of vaccines administered in Coconino County. And instead of it being on the webpage next week, it's actually much of it is up today and the rest of it will be up tomorrow. So we're ahead of schedule on that and happy to say so. The dashboard's also going to include, as I said, what phase of vaccination we are in, and then also an overview of the phase populations, which I'll be going into more detail here in just a minute, because I think these are all the questions that I know we are getting, and I'm sure each and every one of you are getting as well. So the priority groups, as many of you are hearing, we have phase 1A, B, and C, and then phase 2 and 3. And those priority groups continue to be refined and redefined by both the federal entity, which is the acronym is ACIP, and the state entity, which is our VAPAC committees. And this week, just this past week, essential government services have been moved up into phase 1B, and I'm going to explain that in just a minute and what that looks like. But I want to just put the caveat out there for everyone who is listening to understand that there's still a prioritization that is going to have to go on, and that's due to the limited vaccine supply and other extenuating factors that come up. And we anticipate that there's going to be additional prioritization within phase 1B. And I'll get to that in just a moment, because that's really specific about prioritizing our teachers and educators, our law enforcement and other responders, as well as our 75 and up age bracket in that phase 1B, and then all of the other folks who are going to also be eligible in phase 1B. And the idea behind these priority groups is really looked at on the basis of highest level of risk, and also getting our communities back operating at a level in which we hope we can all get back to here in short order. So this is the graphic that I was just speaking about. This is on the website, and I will also share this PowerPoint presentation as well with Stacy, and she can make sure that this becomes something that you all can access. But so we are currently, as you see by this graphic, in phase 1A, which includes our healthcare workers and healthcare support occupations, emergency medical service workers, and then also our long-term care facility staff and residents. And what I want to just explain about this is that long-term care facility staff and residents, effort is a parallel effort that is going on. The county and our partners in allocation, we are not actually doing most of that work. That is being done through the federal pharmacy program. So there is Walgreens and CVS are actually working directly. We assisted all of our long-term care facility and assisted living facilities in making sure they got registered for that program. And that is just getting started. We did confirm with a couple of our facilities yesterday and today that they have started getting contacted by those pharmacies and making arrangements to get in and get those vulnerable populations, the staff and the residents, vaccinated here in phase 1A. In phase 1B, you'll see on here that it says the priority within 1B, as I was referencing, which is going to be our education and child care workers, our law enforcement and protective services, including our jails. There's a whole little subcategory related to the protective services, and then adults 75 and older. So that will be the first priority phase in 1B. Other essential work, as you see there, and there's a couple of asterisks, that includes power and utility workers, food and agriculture related occupations, transportation and moving material occupations, state and local government workers providing critical services, and other essential workers, which, as you can all imagine, we have a lot of our entire community and certainly the residents of Flagstaff that fall into that other essential workers category, along with adults with high-risk conditions in congregate settings. So my message at this point is there's a lot of folks that fall in 1B, and the goal is going to be to get vaccination out to as many people based on this prioritization as quickly as we possibly can in a safe manner. And it's ultimately going to be dependent on not only vaccine availability, but also us being able to increase our partner vaccinator groups and agencies to assist. And as I said, right now, FMC is one of them, North Country Healthcare. We've got Paige Banner working up in our northern region. And I'm excited to share, and certainly I think NAU may share a little bit more when they come on, but they are going to be, they are almost fully onboarded to be vaccinating early next week, starting with their 1A eligible folks, which includes students and staff who are doing those healthcare professions, such as nursing students, dental hygienist students, those folks. So NAU is going to be, will be allocating to them to then vaccinate for that population, and then ultimately moving into 1B. Intent is that NAU will also be helping vaccinate the NAU faculty, staff, and others that are going to fall and even students and essential workers under that 1B category. It's a huge undertaking across the county, and we're going to be partnering with additional pharmacies and others, hopefully, so that as we roll into these other phases, we'll have lots of places where folks can go receive their vaccination. I wasn't going to go into too much other detail about this chart other than to just point out that, as you see up top right now, we have phase 1 potentially taking from the end of December, as I indicated, some of our partners getting started, taking us into spring. And spring can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. I don't have a specific time or date that I can give you, and I know that people want to know that, but just know that we are committed to communicating the information as soon as we have it. The state is working to set up a GIS-based system that folks, when we get into 1B, will be able to go online, see where a location is that's providing the vaccine that they may be able to access and be able to schedule an appointment. There is a pre-screening tool that is required that asks a lot of medical questions, asks for your insurance information. We are required by law with the distribution of the vaccine that every person is eligible to receive it for free. However, any vaccinator must collect insurance and other identifiable information. If people do not have insurance, then there's an option, and certainly we already have this on our site, as do others, that they will say they do not have insurance, and it'll be able to prompt them through to still set an appointment to get a vaccination. So no one will receive a bill for this vaccination, but we are all required on our end to submit information ultimately through the state and the federal government. I think other than to just say certainly these timelines and phases are all tentative, everything is subject to change. We're going to keep updating this as we know, but I would ask if there's any specific questions about this, you can ask them now, whatever your pleasure is, Mayor. I have a couple of other slides I wanted to share, but I'll take it in whatever order makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. Well, let's, I guess, parse it out with any questions or comments specifically on vaccines. Or is this only, are you continuing on with the vaccination discussion, or?
The only other piece I wanted to share is kind of where we are so far with, there's a tool out there, and if it's all right, Mayor, I'll just kind of jump into this, and then maybe that will prompt all the questions at the end if that's a better way to do this.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you. This is a vaccine phase chart that's available on the ADHS COVID website. This was updated today's date, but I just want to point out these doses administered in the last 24 hours may not be included in this report, and I would indicate that they probably are not, especially given that our site at Fort Tuthill just started yesterday. But what's exciting about this chart is I know there's concern about how quickly things are rolling out, and I think that in light of the limited resources that have been provided with respect to counties being able to roll this out, a lot of great work is going on. As you can see on this chart, Coconino has administered just under 2,000 vaccines, and in comparison to other counties, we are rolling along very well and expect to see this number increasing exponentially on a daily basis. And excited about that. This is also going to be being provided and shown on social media and on the county's website as well. And that ultimately was the last piece about vaccines. And I'm happy to answer questions. I had one last slide I was going to share because I think it's important for you all to hear. As the county has been the receiving entity on the COVID response with respect to PPE, personal protective equipment, we have a large supply of that. The city has been a great partner in providing a space, warehouse-related space. Andy can speak to this. We were using the Public Works facility, and then as winter came on, we just recently moved to another city location with our supply of PPE, and we have additional PPE and Connex boxes. We have a lot of PPE, and we are having a PPE blitz for healthcare, first responders, and school communities on Friday, January 22nd. We have, as you see on the screen, lots of PPE with respect to gloves, shields, gowns, masks, and we have sent out this information to our healthcare, first responder, and school communities, including our charter schools. We're going to be meeting with the schools later this week, as we do bi-weekly. They have an order form. I just wanted to share with you that there is available PPE for these entities that we want to get out to them so that they have a good stock of what they need for the next several months, as we're going to be using PPE and needing to continue to mask, physical distance, and do all of the prevention methods that we're currently doing, even for quite some time as we wait for a large percentage of our population to be vaccinated. So with that, Mayor, that is the slides I had to share, and I am happy to take down my screen and answer any questions.
Thank you so much for this information, Musselman, Director Musselman. It's really great to get an update and learn about all this and the vaccine rollout. So very informative. I have a few questions, but I will also, if council has questions, please let me know in the chat box and I will call on you because I have a few. So with the current rollout, do the healthcare workers have to go through their employer, or can they individually go sign up to get vaccinated?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We have noticed the employers for each entity to do it. There are obviously people who may have just left employment, who may be seeking other employment. If you are, or your constituents are, a healthcare worker, they can contact us at our COVID-19 email address, our COVID vaccine email address, and we can answer that question and give them a link where they can go on and schedule an appointment and do the pre-screening.
Excellent, thank you. Yes, I had a constituent reach out to me, so I wanted to check on that. You had mentioned that or I'd seen in the slides that there was 1,010 vaccinations for NIH employees. That's the whole network of NIH, correct? We don't have it specifically for FMC, so that number includes BVMC and Yavapai County and such.
Actually, that number was the number of vaccines that they have administered so far. So the allocation that we are providing is, yes, specific to FMC, because FMC is in Coconino County, and other NIH entities such as Verde Valley Medical Center are actually getting their allocation through Yavapai County. So that included not only their medical, their staff and medical workers, because keep in mind, it's not the other people who are eligible in that hospital setting are the doctors and nurses, but also the other workers who are in the hospital, the facility workers, all of the folks, the various things that are going on in a hospital setting. So that was their number. That number that I gave you was actually their number that they had told us they had administered as of last week. I'm sure that number is even higher. And all told, to date, FMC has received 2,300 doses of vaccine for them to administer, and they're also going to be administering to other entities outside of FMC's staff as soon as they're done vaccinating all of their employees.
Excellent. And where are we facing issues with healthcare professionals and others in the 1A category who do not want the vaccine? Are we? I'm just curious what. I know you won't be able to give me a percentage, but just want to kind of understand what's going on locally with that, as I hear reports elsewhere in the country about that situation.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I don't have an exact number. A lot of it is anecdotal, but it is pretty similar across jurisdictions. We roughly just short, maybe 50-60% are right now indicating that they're wanted to receive the vaccine. There's that about 40% that are saying they want to wait. Of course, we continue to encourage folks to take advantage and get vaccinated. But of course, everyone, that's their personal decision that they need to make. But I would say on average, it is right around that 60% that are availing themselves. And I would say that even, goes across the emergency medical providers as well. Some areas a little higher. In some of those little entities, it seems, just when we see numbers of folks from different employers signing up for vaccinations, that kind of varies across the board. So sorry, that can't be more specific than that.
I appreciate knowing that that's a similar trend that's happening here, as that's a concern. The other question I had is, not from the government perspective, but the employer's perspective, if there are cases where they are mandating their employees to take this, because I remember when my wife was in nursing school and H1N1 came around, and it was a requirement to be able to be an employee or to do your clinicals at the hospital, that they had to get the H1N1. So I'm just wondering, is that happening across the country anywhere? Is there any discussions of that in Arizona, or some that had crossed my mind?
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. Interestingly enough, and I sit on lots of different provider meetings and other groups, there are very few employers at this point in time mandating the vaccination. Personally, we have not come across any yet where we have had employers say yes, and we're mandating this, because unless it is required and they provide some type of information based on that, again, we operate under the rules of HIPAA. We're not providing information back to employers about who got vaccinated or who didn't. Those are things that need to be done at the employer level, that they need to work with their employees. So at this point in time, I will say there's very few entities that are mandating. In fact, very few hospitals. That's another thing that we have learned most recently. Very few hospitals are mandating or requiring it, much less other entities. And we're not requiring it. Just for example, for our Health and Human Services clinic, we in the county, we are not requiring it. Certainly, we are strongly recommending it. We're strongly recommending it to everyone. That's what our job is for public health. But we also are, mindful that there are reasons right now why folks are choosing not to do that.
Yep, understood. With the new vaccine and everything else, I can completely understand. I just was wanting to get the information if that was the trend that I was seeing, that employers were not doing that like they were with H1N1. Great. Well, council members, do we have any questions of Director Musselman? Councilmember Shimoni.
Hi, Ms. Musselman. Thank you so much for joining us and good work. Very excited to hear the update. Appreciate your time tonight. A couple questions. So in the efforts where we partner to distribute the vaccine, is there a chance that they're going to have an administrative charge or a fee for that?
So the way that it is set up, thank you, Councilmember Shimoni, I appreciate it. The way that it is set up, no one is going to be charged a fee for receiving the vaccine. What we are able to do, and in fact required to do, is we have to enter that insurance information, or as I was indicating before, if someone doesn't have insurance, there's actually, I think it's Optimum Health, there's a federal entity that on anyone who's administering the vaccine on their billing side, goes in and enters that information for anyone who is uninsured. And any entity administering the vaccination can only receive what is called an administrative cost. So they're not getting reimbursed for anything but an administrative fee, which of course, like all medical billing, for anyone who is familiar with that, it varies across all sorts of plans. It's anywhere from like $2 or $3 to maybe $30. It's really minimal considering the volume of data entry and paperwork and things that need to be done. It certainly does not even begin to cover the costs of that administration. But the beautiful thing is it's not being charged to the individual. So you're not going to get a bill for a copay later or any of that to the individual.
Okay, great. And my follow-up was along the same lines of thoughts that you were just talking to, which is if someone doesn't have an insurance provider and going through that federal process that you mentioned, do they have to have a social security card number to do that?
So right now we are required to add, if somebody says they do not have insurance, then at the site, when we're not asking them to enter that, and I won't speak for all entities, but certainly on our county site for Tuthill and through our Eventbrite, we're not asking them to enter that online. We are gathering that information when they show up for their appointment, because we have to review their paperwork anyway with them, and then we're gathering that information at that time.
So they are required to have a social security card number?
To provide their social security number, yes, at this time. So we're still working on the pieces outside of that 1A. Obviously, we're going to have others, especially as we move into some of those other categories, especially general public, that we may not, people may be undocumented and not have that. We haven't gotten specific information about that yet. We're seeking those answers. Okay. Right now, while we're dealing directly with employers, because of the way that our state works, we haven't had to run into that yet because it's based off of employment right now.
Okay. Thank you so much and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
I did have another question as well. I was wondering how personnel levels, I had read about down south how they're having issues with rolling out the vaccine due to too few public health professionals and people to administer the vaccine. How are we facing that similar issue up here, or is it more or less severe, et cetera? I think I was seeing that from Sun City or something.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So far, we are doing quite well with respect to just how much capacity we even have to administer vaccine. We have, on the county side for Fort Tuthill, we have nursing staff that is not only HHS staff, but a couple of temporary nursing staff positions. We obviously have a community with lots of medical providers and eligible medical providers in it. That's one of the great things about living in Flagstaff in northern Arizona. So far, we are not running into that issue. I won't venture to say that we won't. I know there's lots of other certified medical providers who are reaching out in terms of being willing to volunteer and avail themselves of their services. So we have that information, and if we run into a situation where that is a concern, we will be reaching out to those that express interest. But so far, we're doing pretty good, even on the pharmacy level and other entities. But we will certainly keep folks posted, because I know we have a lot of folks who are either not working anymore or have retired and may have interest as we need it.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Wesselman. Council, do we have any other comments or questions before moving on? Not saying anything. I'd just like to say I really appreciate all your hard work. Ms. Wesselman, I don't envy your job in this chaos. And I really appreciate all the hard work the county's been doing, and partners and everyone else, to see this unprecedented time that we're doing the best we can. So I really appreciate your leadership in this situation.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. And I would just like to close with, certainly this is information that we are putting out weekly. Please go to our website frequently. It is updating all of the time. I mean, multiple times a day with respect to information, especially about vaccinations. And I'll just share with you that you will all see me back at the joint city-county meeting on the 28th, talking more about COVID and vaccinations, as I know that that's a big piece of the agenda. So until then, please watch all of our information and our weekly reports and all of those things that not only you are able to access, but all of our constituents and residents here in Coconino County and City of Flagstaff. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Kim. Next up, we have an update from Northern Arizona University. We have Josh Mayer and Christy Farley, and I believe they are on the call. So Josh and Christy, without further ado, feel free to take the microphone.
Thank you so much. Josh Mayer, I'm the Assistant Vice President for Community Relations at NAU. Thank you, Mayor, DC, Vice Mayor Daggett, Council, and City staff. And first of all, welcome our new Mayor and Council members. We look forward to connecting with each of you outside of the COVID-19 topic very, very soon. And thank you for the opportunity for inviting us to share our plans for the safe return for our spring 2021 semester. As you know, the health and wellness of our students, staff, faculty, and the broader community are always at the forefront of all of our plans and protocols. And in the interest of transparency, I'm committed to providing weekly email updates to the council and staff on our case counts from the NAU testing site. And of course, any of the changes as the pandemic situation remains very fluid. With that, I'd like to turn over the discussion to our Vice President for External Affairs and Partnerships, Christy Farley, who's been engaged in our COVID-19 strategy since the onset of the pandemic and can provide details on our spring 2021 semester. Christy.
Thank you, Josh. Mayor and Council, I'm happy to be with you again today and appreciate the opportunity to talk about Northern Arizona University and our plans for spring reopening. As we did in the fall, we have implemented a number of mitigation strategies, which of course start with signage on campus, companion with the city and the county on the mask policies, social distancing, all of the hygiene efforts, and then as Kim mentioned, significant testing. So we look forward to reopening the NAU Fieldhouse for not only testing of our NAU campus community tomorrow, but also the Flagstaff and Coconino County community at large. NAU did play a large role in the NAU and Flagstaff community testing effort throughout the September through December term, and we're happy to do that again. So that effort resulted in approximately 2,800 to 3,000 individuals tested on average per week. As we saw a spike at the end of our testing period, and we realized that testing demand has heightened through the month of December, we increased those numbers of tests. We are, again, making a big push that individuals pre-register, and those openings were made available over the weekend so that starting now, people can go online and register, and it is available for a walk-up site. So that is a different option for our community, which we found very accessible for them. So the hours are 9 to 2 daily, Monday through Saturday. And once you have a registration on the portal, it's extremely easy, and anyone over the age of 5 can be tested on site through the saliva-based testing. Results are generally returned within 48 hours or less through the portal. We will again continue to do mitigation testing of our campus population, which is a required testing component. And we notify individuals, anywhere from 2,000 to 2,500 individuals per week, that they have been asked to come to the field house and schedule a testing appointment anywhere between Monday through Saturday, so that they can test and we can continue to keep both our campus and the local community healthy. We do know that asymptomatic spread is an issue, and so we have found that that was a significant assistance in helping us keep the positivity rate low for our campus community during the fall semester. As we did in the fall, we are asking that students who will be residing on campus upload a negative test result prior to returning to campus. They must do that. The negative test result must be within 7 days of their return to campus. So we are beginning the spring semester as we did the fall semester with a soft launch. Our first day of classes is on January 11th. All classes will begin virtually unless they are absolutely required to be in person. So remote delivery will continue through January 22nd. With a phase return to our residence halls. We have requested that students limit their contact with others and follow good mitigation efforts after they do their testing and upload that negative test result, and then move into our residence halls, and then we will continue mitigation testing throughout the semester. We've also requested those that will be moving into the community that they also test before returning. All delivery options plan to be open to the campus community beginning January 25th. That includes in-person, NAU Flex, which is our online option, and then our regular online. Classes will end on April 29th this year as we eliminated spring break. So we will be ending early. Our testing site will stay open a week after we end the semester to ensure that students have the ability to do a slower move out and will be able to test before they leave the campus. As Ms. Musselman mentioned, we are working on the vaccination implementation so that we can deliver that on campus for our phase 1A group that is on campus. We also have a number of statewide sites, and we have been working with those local communities to make that available for our statewide students, faculty, and staff. So all of those things are underway. Mayor and Councilman, I'm happy to answer questions.
Council, if you have any questions or comments. Vice Mayor Daggett.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Farley. I have a question about masks and whether they are mandatory on campus.
Yes, Councilmember Daggett, masks are required inside any facilities.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing any other questions. Councilmember Shimoni.
Thank you, Mayor, and hi, Mr. Mayor and Ms. Farley. Great to see you all. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Cheers to another semester at NAU during this crazy time. So I was curious really quick if you all wouldn't mind just talking to a couple points, just lessons from last semester when it comes to COVID and mitigation, and specifically contact tracing and culture. I mean, we've talked about these things, and I'm just wondering, you know, it's tough, right? Because if some students don't care to, you know, social distance and isolate, and they want to just do what they want to do, they're going to find ways to do that. And ultimately, they have the ability to do that. But what did we learn from last semester, and what are we doing differently to address the culture and behavior that we're looking to see? Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor DC and Councilmember Shimoni. It's nice to see you, and Happy New Year. As we went through, we have, as you know, supported the contact tracing effort in cooperation with the county, and we continue to replicate that and have staffed them throughout the winter break and kept our staffing there, despite the fact that we had most of our students leave during the break. And so it really is an extreme collaborative effort and partnership. And I think that we have learned a lot during this effort. And as our students return to the residence halls, that expectation of student code of conduct, we have incorporated that the expectation is that they will be responding to contact tracers when they are contacted. So we have worked that into our student code of conduct, which I think helps us in communicating with students on expectations. And I also think that removing, and we talked about this during the fall semester, sort of removing that stigma that you necessarily did something wrong in order to contact COVID. That COVID-19 is a very contagious disease, and that individuals contact it a number of ways. And so understanding that we remove that stigma and we ask that people report, and that we are here to benefit you and help keep our community safe. We also have worked very hard to improve our quarantine and isolation efforts. We worked with our off-campus students to say, if it's difficult for you to do that off-campus, we have space for you and we will help you do that on campus. We have developed care packages that we help to make that experience a little bit less difficult for individuals, so that, you know, we again try to just make it so that it is an experience that people don't shy away from, and that we sort of get through this whole thing together. So those are some of the things that we have learned through this process. We do have very good reporting from our contact tracers, which we submit to the Department of Health Services on a regular basis, and we look at what those response rates are from different populations. And we have worked very hard with our campus community. So I think those are the lessons learned.
And if I could add to that a little bit, Christy, I think another strategy that's proven very effective is the volume of mitigation testing that we've been able to implement over the semester. Like Christy said, while the testing is open to the broader community, close to 2,000 or more of those people who are taking advantage of the testing or who are required to test are somehow affiliated with NAU. And so we've been able to identify very quickly people who have come in contact with the virus or who are carriers of the virus or pre-symptomatic or asymptomatic, and really begin that contact tracing and isolation and quarantining process. And so, through that, we've consistently been able to maintain a lower rate of positivity for the virus on our campus than the broader community, and sometimes very significantly lower. And so I think that's a very, very sound strategy that we've been able to implement.
Thank you for that. A couple last quick comments and questions. Just a thought, and I'm sure you all have probably thought about this, but just picking out some of the key organizations and groups on campus, whether it's sorority and fraternity, Greek life, or sports or clubs, and kind of meeting with their leaders. Do you all do something like that to try to see the behavior that we're looking for?
Thank you so much for that, Council Member Shimoni. We do. We have a student leadership group that has leadership representatives from athletics, from our Greek life, from our ASNAU student government, from our graduate student government, from a variety of our other clubs and organizations that we meet with, both from our student affairs leadership teams as well as from the presidential level. And we meet with them several times to help us both with communication and messaging on efforts from testing, from compliance, and then also from new things that we're working on, including things like the COVID Watch app, and how do we increase the number of individuals that are downloading that? How do we increase usage of our daily health check among students? And, so it really is about messaging and communication and the tools that we're working with them to use. And so all of those things are important. And then with regard to the particular groups that you have mentioned, we've also worked with them to present additional data points so that they can see within their own organizations, here is how your organizations are doing on testing compliance and percent positivity and those types of things, so that there's an accountability measure. And then with athletics in particular, we have additional stopgaps between the NCAA. So those groups that are in competition, for example, right now, some of our teams are testing every 3 days. So it is very extensive what those compliance measures look like. And so there's a variety of both communication tools and accountability measures.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have any other comments or questions from council? Well, I'd just like to thank you, Vice President and Associate Vice President, for helping us to learn what's happening at NAU. And I do have to say, I have been very impressed throughout this on how NAU's protocols and the adaptation to new things. And to be honest, I went to the field house a few times for COVID testing myself, and I will say it was very efficient. It was quick. The employees in there were extremely kind and upbeat, and when we're walking in there, everyone really nervous. That's kind of helps you through the process. So I appreciate the amount of testing and how you're testing and the protocols that you all have and are putting in place. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. We invite the entire council to come use the services. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Josh and Christy, for being a community partner. Mayor Deasy, next up, and council, next up is, like I had said earlier, a person that really needs no introduction in our community, and that's Dr. David Engelthaler with TGen North. As we all know, TGen North is focusing on infectious disease research with a specific mission to advance clinical medicine, public health, and biodefense. So Dr. Engelthaler, as I had mentioned earlier, prior to joining TGen, he was the state epidemiologist and state biodefense coordinator for Arizona. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Engelthaler. And Dr. Engelthaler, thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Yeah, you bet. I'm really honored to be here, and so thank you, Andy, and thank you, Mayor and Vice Mayor Daggett, and council members for hosting this part of your session around COVID. You get an update from a lot of individuals that have been playing such an important part in this community, and it's been an honor to work with them over these past many months. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Dave Engelthaler, and I know most of the individuals on council. I've interacted with some people going back multiple decades, actually. So it's great to be here with you and be part of Team Flagstaff, which we definitely are here at TGen. I'm not going to talk very much about TGen this time. I did that last time. As you know, TGen was the first diagnostic lab to start testing for COVID outside of the state lab in all of Arizona, and we've been able to be right here supporting the city and the county for these many months. And we've been the primary site for genomic analysis and sequencing of the virus, and I'll talk a little bit about what we're learning from that and what we're learning around with the work around the country in that regard. Can I just get a confirmation that you can see my slides?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And please interrupt if anything seems to go wrong. And I'm going to go through some updates that you haven't heard. We'll talk about some things and some things I think that are really important to focus on. Some observations as we're learning more about not only this virus, but this pandemic on the population, the effect on the population. And some of my opinions then around what we should be doing moving forward. And I also have some questions that I get asked a lot, and I can hit on those, and happy to answer questions from council as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. The state of COVID, we live actually in the state of COVID right now. Arizona has the highest rates of COVID infection documented in the world right now. We've been here before. We're here again. It won't last long. Other states will pass us. California is right next to us. And that also speaks a little bit to the effectiveness of strategies. Arizona and California have had very different strategies, yet we are getting hit very similarly again. We are in the winter surge. We knew we were going to be. We did not know it was going to be really this tsunami-like effect of cases, much more so. And you can see this top graph. This is looking at the cases, the daily cases throughout the entirety of the pandemic. And there's the summer surge, which we all thought was enormous. The caseload we're seeing now, and really kind of, if you can envision the curve here, the amount of space under that curve is so much greater than what we saw during the summer surge. So we're having a lot more transmission than we really wanted or expected, but knew that we were going to have certainly a winter surge, because this is a respiratory virus. This is the time for respiratory viruses. And we also have, and I'll talk about this in a minute, strains that are really adept at spreading between humans that are circulating. This graph down here in the lower left hand is the amount of hospitalizations. And what we can see is that the hospitalizations has surpassed what we saw during the summer surge, but it's not as big as what we're seeing, the difference between cases now and the summer surge. So what it means is that we're
while we still have a lot hitting our hospitals, and we're near capacity for sure. We're not at capacity, but we're near it, but it is not as proportional as it was before, and therefore we're seeing less serious outcomes. And that can definitely be seen here in comparing the deaths between the current winter surge and the summer surge, which right now it's a little bit less, with the numbers, really kind of lagging behind, usually a week or two behind. We're going to probably see as much as we saw during the summer surge. But again, proportionally, it is a much lower impact than what we did see during the summer surge. So that there's some good news in that, but it's the deaths that I really do want to spend a little bit of time on, because it is really important. That is, to me, that is the most important part, continues to be the most important part of this pandemic that we need to focus on, and maybe less so on the number of cases. And so let's look at the fatalities here, and don't worry about trying to capture all these numbers in here, but this is a breakdown by age group and by different groupings there. You can see on the left-hand side. And if we look at the case fatality rate, there really is a tale of two different generations here. The younger generation, particularly younger than 20, we really see very, very, very few case fatalities. And the majority of these even are in older teenagers. And that's not to say that it's acceptable to have deaths from infectious diseases. We do have those actually every year, but it is nothing compared to what we see in our elderly population. We've known this for a long time. These numbers are still incredibly starkly different. 9% fatality rate, over 9% fatality rate in those over 65. Now, what's really good news is that number at the beginning, going back into April and May, that was at 17, 18% fatality rate in that age group. That has essentially been halved. Part of that is we're getting additional less serious cases occurring in the elderly, but we're also really improving our ability to treat patients as they hit the healthcare system, and try to prevent them from getting into a serious situation where they may be at risk from dying. But it's still completely different effects on these populations. Less than 0.2% of the total deaths are there in that younger age group, versus almost 3/4 of the deaths are in elderly. And then when you put in the other known high-risk groups, people with multiple comorbidities, we are well over 85% of deaths are in people that we know are highest risk, and I think we could have done more and continue to do more to prevent those deaths. So in reality, I've been saying this for a while, the kids are all right, the grandparents are not. That is where we need to spend our time and attention, I believe, moving forward. Here's just another way to look at this, and sorry for the detail on this, but all you can do is picture these curves are different age groups, and up in the upper left, this is 0 to 14 years. This is 15 to 24 years there in the middle. And then at the bottom here, there's 65 to 74, 75 to 84. And this is looking at total deaths this year. And you can see the coloring, here it's yellow, and it moves into blue. That is COVID deaths versus all the other causes of deaths that occur. And we can see that in these older populations, it really is a significant proportion of deaths. It's not the majority of the deaths, obviously. It is a fraction, but it's a significant fraction. But again, if we look at the younger teenagers and younger, you can't even see the presence of this in the causes of deaths in this age group. So it's just another way to look at that. One other thing to think about with deaths is really been the COVID impact on our Native American communities, and we had some presentations about that earlier today. This is something that has been, obviously, we've seen the devastation being so close to Navajo Nation and watching what's happening with our other close tribal neighbors. It has gotten better, but we still are in a place where, while Native Americans make up less than 5%, about 4.5% of the population in the state, and that is pretty close to the amount of cases that they make up. They make up 9% of the deaths, and therefore, essentially it's showing a 2 times increased risk of death for Native Americans of all ages. And if you look on the right-hand side here, this is from CDC, and looking at age group differences in deaths, we know the dark blue, this is actually showing white, non-Hispanic, white, or Caucasian versus American Indian and Alaskan Native populations. And the dark blue is the white populations. And here, this over 70, over 80, that's where we're seeing all the deaths. But if we look at Native American populations, that's not the case. It is in our 50 to 60 to 70-year-old populations that are really seeing the majority of the deaths. So there really is a difference in different populations. And so this is something we have to continue to look at, try to understand why. We do know that a lot of it has to do with increased comorbidities in these age groups versus in non-tribal populations, but also has other things such as access to care, timely access to care, and testing and all of those pieces. I just had to point that particular piece out. Another view and looking at deaths, and sorry to be so dark on this, but I think this is, to me, is still the most important part of this pandemic, is looking at what's happened in the U.S. This year versus previous years. So this is looking at 4 years from 2017 to 2020. And this trend line that we see here, this orange line, is essentially the threshold that is established through some statistical processes to say that above that you have excess deaths for the year, unanticipated or an aberration that can be due to a specific cause. In this particular case, COVID-19. So everything above the line here represents additional deaths in these individual weeks, essentially throughout the year, and we could see that we had a lot of this occurring in April and May, and in fact, about 35% of deaths were excess deaths, and are as high as 35%, and now getting down to 10% or lower. And overall, we're going to see probably on average about 10 to 15% increase in deaths this year over previous years overall because of this. And we can even look at this a little bit locally. This is one of the graphs from Coconino County that wasn't shown, looking at essentially the green line is really a 5-year average. And these are the months of 2020. The red line is what would be established as a historical limit for deaths within each of those months. And we can see from March through October, we definitely went above that line. And we know, again, who these people are, and the vast majority of those, because we knew who they are, I do believe were mostly preventable had we put the efforts and the focus on them. Unfortunately, specifically in Coconino County, a lot of these, again, were Native American and were probably not as preventable because of not great access or timely access to health care to quickly respond to them. But we are seeing in November and December, even though all the numbers aren't in yet, that we have fallen now below the historical limit. And this is partly because in December, or in the winter months, we see a natural increase in deaths anyways, and we just have not surpassed that here in Coconino County, which is good. One more thing that's come up a lot is comparison to influenza and how, in some cases people were saying, well, this is like a strong or a worse influenza. And in others, people were saying this is nowhere near comparable. And the truth is actually somewhere in the middle. What we see, though, is in the younger populations, and sorry, let me point this out, the blue lines represent the last 8 years, I believe last 7 years of influenza deaths. By age group here, and this is really showing a infection fatality rate, which is like a case fatality rate, and the red lines are a number of different studies that have been documenting the fatality rates of COVID around the world in these different age groups. And so we can definitely see trends. Flu, interestingly, almost every year follows this same trend, and we know what that is. It is it's pretty painful in the youngest, but much more painful in the older populations that are at high risk. COVID when you compare, is actually less dangerous in the very youngest age groups. It's less deadly, but once you get to about 10 years older, between 10 and 20, it starts to act very similar to flu. And as you get out of that, getting up to 30 years old and higher, all of a sudden COVID, you have almost a 3 times increase in risk of death, upward as you get up into the elderly populations, up to 14 times higher risk of death from COVID than from flu. So they really are comparable in some regards, but COVID has been much, much worse in our older populations, without a doubt. So let me just spend a couple minutes on what I'm seeing in my observations, especially thinking genomically. We know that COVID-19, the virus, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, is evolving, and it does have different strains that are being spread around. It is now spreading faster than our ability to prevent it, and it actually has been for many months. But we still know who we have to protect, and those most serious, or excuse me, the highest risk populations. COVID-19 originally seemed to cause a serious SARS-like disease, and we remember SARS from 2002, 2003, very serious pneumonia, and didn't spread. Continued to spread very far. Wasn't as transmissible as this. This seems to spread more like influenza. And therefore, shutdowns and travel bans actually did seem appropriate early on. That seemed to make sense. But what happened is what I call COVID-20, which is not an official moniker, but this was the major strain that was first seen in Italy and in Europe in February of 2020, and it quickly spread throughout Europe and into the Americas and dominated, essentially replaced everything else that was coming out of China. Of course, this strain originated out of China, showed up in Italy and France, but this became the dominant strain. It's typified by a mutation in the spike protein, the spikes on the outside of the coronavirus, that seem to allow it to get into host cells faster, replicate faster, and get out faster. What happened is it turned this very serious disease into something now that spread more like the common cold. And it really allowed these cases to grow much more exponentially than was occurring originally. So we didn't see the same effect of what was happening in Asian countries early on when it really took hold in the Americas. And it took off like wildfire, and many other metaphors we could use. And now the thought of a COVID-21 discussions, a lot of this in the news, and I'm not trying to perpetuate any rumors, but there is a new UK strain that has come out of the UK in late 2020 and in December, really seemed to take a foothold throughout United Kingdom, and now spreads many, many times more rapidly than what was actually already there, which we knew was more than we could handle. And the concern is this is now spreading around the world. We first really heard about this before Christmas, and now everybody's been looking for it. It's now in, I believe, over 20 countries, probably closer to 30 countries have been documented. And it's now been documented in at least 4 states, Georgia being the most recent, California, Colorado, and Florida. But it's much more likely in most of the states, or in many, many more states in the U.S. It seems to spread much faster, but not cause a more serious disease than what we were seeing. And we're seeing more and more younger cases. That's what we started seeing during the last half of 2019, a younger demographic spreading it very easily. So our college-age kids are going to spread this really quickly. So given that, this seems maybe what's happening is what has happened with other human coronaviruses in the past. And the only successful strategy for human coronaviruses to go on and survive has been to become more transmissible and less pathogenic, become the common cold virus. This may be what's happening. This may be some good news. It's too early to say that's what's happening, but that might be what we have to deal with in a few years with this particular virus. It just may become easier spread and less pathogenic. One of my other observations, and these are obvious observations, is that the unseen mental health pandemic is tremendous, and it has been exacerbated by our response efforts. The lockdown, the closing of schools has really led to a toll that's going to take many, many years to really understand and much longer to recover from than the actual virus itself. We do know, in some circumstances, there's been documents of, not only increased depression rates, suicide rates. The number of drug overdose deaths this year is off the charts and continuing to increase. And part of that is people are actually getting, strangely enough, they're getting worse drugs. It's harder to actually distribute drugs in some circumstances. And so you have a lot of kind of homemade fentanyl type drugs that are causing more and more deaths from overdoses than we would have normally seen. But there is just a lot more usage and calls to crisis centers. And I am very, very concerned about this. And then I really do think vaccines are our only way out of this dark tunnel. We cannot continue to just let this thing wash over us and try to achieve herd immunity naturally, especially as we prolong that by locking things down and trying to prevent spread. It just means the pain is going to last much, much longer. Vaccines will get us out of this. The vaccines are off the charts, way more amazing than we thought they would be. The effectiveness is just incredible. The reported effectiveness of the 2 vaccines that are being put into arms right now. There's always lots of consternation and argue about how good the vaccine is, or it's too slow to get out. The public health folks and Director Musselman, one of them, and her team have done an absolutely amazing job. The scientists who developed this vaccine have gone way above and beyond. There's never been a time in history when you could invent, design a vaccine, develop it, test it, trial it, produce it, get it out to the world and start getting it into people's arms within the same year. Never would have thought of this. Only Hollywood would have thought of this. But we've done it. And the vaccine, I mean, the collective we, and that includes the federal government that actually had the foresight to just put all the chips on the table, pay for the development and manufacturing so they could just start pushing this out. And now millions of people have been vaccinated in this country, and many millions more will be. And in fact, I believe, it's my prediction, that by March, we'll have as many people vaccinated as we've had cases, which means that we will have a tremendous amount of what's called herd immunity. I like to think of community immunity around the country, and that's really going to help cases to drop fast. So vaccines, critical, important. I'm not a fan of mandatory compulsory vaccines, but I am a fan of every leader getting out there and talking about how important vaccines are. So that's my pitch to you, Mayor, and the council. My recommendation strategy, or my recommended strategy is always been prevent deaths, do what we can to prevent deaths, and then limit overall harm. And I do have a history, as during my introduction, of public health emergency response. I actually was the public health emergency response coordinator for the state of Arizona for a number of years as well. And in this case, it's to use the least restrictive means to achieve the maximal positive effect. And I really do think that we have to use the best of science as well as intentional humanity. It's not just all about the science, and science really has to stop being used as both a punchline and as a weapon. But we really need to use it as a tool to illuminate the best way to serve each other and to respond to this. And I do think that some sides think that they have the capture on science like it's a football to own, and it's not. It is something that we just generally improve our knowledge, and then we use that knowledge to best respond. And I think a best response is a balanced response. I think we need to have focused actions, targeted tactics to stop the spread to the most vulnerable, because they will continue to die if we don't. And then general actions, these broad-based tactics to slow the spread in the general public, and not thinking about trying to stop the spread. We cannot do that. This virus is definitely better at spreading than we are at stopping it. But what we can certainly do is protect the most vulnerable. This is a philosophical point, and I won't get into it here. I'm happy to discuss this with somebody else, somebody at another time. But I think that it's really important when making policy decisions that we don't get into one of these camps and I really don't think that the ends justify the means, and I don't think the means justify the ends. And you could probably guess what that means in this particular case. But I just think that we've got to be a bit more balanced in our approach. So I do think there's a role for everyone. And that starts off, if you're young and healthy, you should be acting like you're a possible carrier and do the things to limit the spread to others. And that means masking and distancing and getting your vaccine. Whereas if you're elderly or at high risk, you should act like everyone else is a carrier and protect yourself. So you have a role to protect yourself here. Shelter in place or have a very small social bubble. There's lots of great social services out there to support these individuals. Absolutely, they're getting devastated by the mental health impacts of this, but I want them to survive to be able to recover from those mental health impacts. And they need to get the vaccine as well. And then as we're continuing to work hard to protect each other, I really do think we got to really work hard to treat each other like we're worth protecting. And I see too much vitriol still as we're trying to get through this. I think this is how I think of it being together. Not that it's just a collective, but that we each have a role here and we can do something important. So some of the questions that come to me as a research scientist or as an infectious disease epidemiologist and former public health official: should schools be open? I absolutely think they should. As I've pointed out, schools, our kids are in a situation where they're not being tremendously affected by this, and closing schools for diseases which they are tremendously affected by does not seem to help. In the past, the scientific studies have shown time and time again. So I do think schools should be open. Universities, it's in a different category. I support what NAU is doing, but they're 18 to 20-year-olds and 18 to 23-year-olds are not the same as 5 to 14-year-olds. What about surfaces and fomite transmission? Very early on, everybody jumped in, started wiping down everything because we found out that the virus could live on surfaces. Well, the problem is now, after many, many months of looking, we're not really seeing any transmission associated with contaminated surfaces. Very, very few suspect transmissions have occurred from surfaces versus the inhalation of the virus from someone else who's nearby that is expelling the virus by coughing or sneezing or singing or yelling or whatever. So I don't want people to stop cleaning surfaces. I think it's important, but I don't think it's an important part of COVID-19. I think it's actually done a lot to prevent flu this year, which has been great because we've been seeing very, very little flu. And so I think the things we're doing for COVID are really good for flu, and they're only okay for COVID. What's up with masks? And there's a lot of, masks have been a mess from the beginning, the discussions around masks and the recommendations. And I won't go through all of that, but masks add a layer of protection. If any type of covering adds some layer of protection, and better covering adds better protection. And so it's not a cure-all. In fact, most people now that are getting the virus have been wearing masks and have not been in high-risk situations. So we know that it doesn't prevent spread, but it helps to slow spread. It helps to maybe prevent droplets from getting from one person to another in some circumstances. So they're still very important, and we need to be doing that. And it's a least restrictive means to have as much impact as possible. Do we need another lockdown? Here's the opposite. This is the most restrictive means, and I really am opposed to general lockdowns. I think very specific circumstances. I think for the preventing spread to the vulnerable, but not across a population. We've seen how much devastation. We have to own that now. We have to see that that's occurred because it has occurred. We can't start thinking, well, that's been overblown. It hasn't been. It's been devastating not only to the public psyche and individual psyche, but also obviously to the economy. what can we forecast for the next 6 months? So we're at the beginning of the year. Happy New Year, out with the old, in with the old, essentially right now. We still have this virus with us. Thankfully, vaccines are here and are going to be what gets us out of this. But it will take a while for them to really have an effect. I do think within about 3 months, we will be seeing enough immunity from vaccines and cases that case levels will drop down, but it's not going to go away. And it won't be until June until we have really, hopefully 50% of the population may be vaccinated. And then with the number of cases and immunity from cases, we're going to really start to see this virus being vanquished enough that we can really start interacting as humans again and seeing each other face to face. But the virus won't go away. It's still going to be around, and we do need to take care for the next 6 months. And then the last one I had was, will the virus evolve enough to require new vaccines? Well, it's definitely evolving, and it is changing, and it's changing the flavor of the virus and how it acts, but it's not going to be evading the whole immune response right away. That takes a real significant amount of change to the viral genome, and that usually doesn't happen until after years of what we would call selective pressure. You have a vaccine, and you can get some escape mutations potentially that build up, and then those can go on to transmit to others. I think that will take at least a couple of years for it to potentially get past the vaccine, but we're going to be monitoring that and hopefully updating the vaccine every year or every couple of years like we do with influenza. And I think that may be what we just do. We just get our flu shot along with our COVID shot every year. And potentially maybe every other year, depending on how long immunity lasts. And with that, I do have to give one shout out to TGen. I've called this group the Genomic First Responders. They were first in, started developing assays back in January, have been going nonstop. They're still doing a lot of work. So you have some beautiful heroes in the community that you guys don't get to see very often, but these are an amazing group of people that are absolutely honored, as I am, to serve the community. So we're glad to be your partner. And with that, Mayor, I may have taken too much time, but I'll turn it back over to you, and happy to answer any questions that you or our council members have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Engelthaler. And honestly, I could listen to you probably talk about this for another hour or two, frankly. So, I mean, the work that you're doing, your team is doing, also the very data-driven yet also holistic and human aspect of your approach, I really, really appreciate. So thank you. I believe you are and your team are such an asset to our community and to this whole effort in fighting COVID in general. I do have a few questions from our council members, so I'll start with them. Councilmember Aslan.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Dr. Engelthaler. Thank you for being with us again. It's good to be back with you, and I feel hopeful that we're meeting up this time with some good news on the horizon. I wanted to ask you specifically about post-vaccination, what that means for individuals, what it means for potted families, neighbors, communities, what it means for restaurants. After you've gotten your vaccine, are you able to not wear a mask, or can you still transmit the virus to others? And what kind of percentage of the population are we looking at having successfully received the vaccine before life starts to look normal again? And in terms of policy, when we can start opening up and getting back to normal for sports and for movie theaters and restaurant going and all that other good economic stuff that we want to be doing.
Yeah, great. Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Aslan, I think that these are what we're going to be learning. The answer to your question, we don't know fully yet, but we're going to be learning, especially now as we have millions of people vaccinated, and we're going to be watching, what are we reducing our risk of getting the virus and transmitting the virus. A couple of things we do know is that 7 to 10 days, for that 7 to 10 days after you get vaccinated, you are as much risk as if you didn't get vaccinated. So you still need to absolutely treat yourself like you're unvaccinated. But what we want is people to actually be acting like they're unvaccinated until they at least get their second dose. But the trials have shown us that after about 10 days after the first dose, the vast majority, well over 90% of individuals develop enough of immune response that they don't get infected. They don't become cases of COVID. For the ones that do, they typically have a much less serious disease and lower amounts of virus. So the thought is that they're going to have a less risk of transmitting as well. So for even those that the vaccine doesn't prevent disease, which is going to be a small minority, they're going to have less risk of transmission. So that's why we really will be able to build up that herd immunity, these community immunity that we talk about after vaccination, but we need to get enough people vaccinated. And I don't think that that's going to happen until after March. By March, we're going to start to see that effect. We're going to see case numbers dropping off. I do think by June, we're going to have enough that people actually can start to interact. Especially if you've been vaccinated or you've been infected previously, in a way that we did before the pandemic, for sure. I think that if you're at high risk, you definitely should get your immunity checked. Can we detect antibodies in you after you get vaccinated? Because you may still be at high risk, and we want to make sure that those people are not, and still try to protect them as much as possible. I do think fall and winter of 2021, we will have concerts, we will have people, really in sporting events and those types of things. I do see that on the horizon, as you're kind of alluding to.
Excellent. Councilwoman Sweet.
Thank you. Dave, thank you so much for your time. I have talked with you a few times about COVID, and you've always been just super helpful, and I appreciate that. I'm wondering about the antibodies. So those who have had COVID, are there any studies showing how long the antibodies last?
Great question, Mr. Mayor, Council Member Sweet. Good to say that. Congratulations. I think that yeah, there's a number of studies, and we've been watching this. So right now, it really does seem like we're probably going to get at least a year or more of immunity from either the vaccine or from an infection, by and large, and that means well over 90%. And we don't know if it's that long, but most of the studies now that are showing it's showing people who were infected 8 months ago definitely still have high levels of antibody, as well as then some of our other immune responses that are harder to measure. Some of our white cells that actually respond really well, these killer cells that will attack virus-infected cells. And so the science is showing us that we are going to have long-lasting immunity. When I say long-lasting, I think at least a year. What we know about other human coronaviruses is that can be a year to 2 years, that overall immunity. So we think that that'll last. There is definitely going to be a small proportion of the population that won't develop antibodies, but it turns out that even those individuals, the majority of them develop other parts of the immune response that will likely prevent them from being exposed. This is why we don't have very many reinfections. We're into this for a year now. A lot of people we're looking for reinfections around the world, and very few clearly documented cases of reinfection. So I think that just goes to show that most people develop a good immune response, and that will last probably for at least a year.
Wow, thank you.
Well, I had a couple questions that they've actually been touched on a little bit. Just to follow up, so individuals who have contracted COVID since March, should they be getting in line for the vaccinations is one question that I had. And as opposed to waiting or whatnot, if somebody, for example, got COVID in August, when should they get the vaccine?
Great question, Mr. Mayor and council members. The recommendation right now is it doesn't matter if you were previously infected. The recommendation is still to get vaccinated, because essentially getting vaccinated, even if you have a strong immune response, you're just going to give yourself another booster and you'll have a more robust immune response. So right now, the recommendation is still go ahead. If you're in the priority group, get vaccinated, no matter what your previous history with COVID is.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question, which you also touched on, but regarding the mutation that's coming out of the UK, or was found to hit and come our way, these vaccines are expectedly going to continue to be just as efficacious towards these because of they're the mRNA, and it has does it have the same protein sequence or whatnot that will allow this vaccine to last for a longer amount of time with this new mutation coming up?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Mr. Mayor. I think what has been looked at now is that the way that antibodies will attach to the virus is that it would attach in a number of different places, not just in one or two places. So it is possible that some of these mutations, like that the UK variant has, that you may not have good antibody attachment in some locations on the spike protein, but you should still have a lot more effective or a lot of additional effective attachments of antibody, if that makes sense. So that's why it takes a real substantial change to the virus in order for antibodies to no longer be effective. So that is the thinking. They've definitely done the in silico analysis, in the computer analysis, to really tease that apart. It doesn't look like there'll be an effect against the vaccine with this new strain, but they are absolutely doing the vaccine studies right now to prove that.
Excellent, thank you. We do have a comment from Councilmember Salas and a question from Ms. Hanson.
Dr. Engelthaler, first let me give you some hearts. Some grateful to you, your team, and our AZ Genomic first responders. In fact, TGen has been around for so many years doing some great work. And my son, actually, he's in second year George Mason University now, taking up bioscience, but he did a dual enrollment and did some lab work at TGen a few years ago. Would you be so kind to share the PowerPoint presentation that you shared with us tonight, because I'd love to have it and share it with our constituents. My key takeaways are community immunity, and use the least restrictive means necessary to achieve maximal positive efforts. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Salas. It's always great to see you. Thank you for the very kind words. I'd be happy to share the PowerPoint with you.
Yeah, thank you. I was actually going to ask the same thing. I really like the whole presentation, all the graphics and everything. That would be real helpful to share with the community, especially as we try to communicate heavily on getting people vaccinated in our community. The more we speak up about it, the better. And but I do have a question from Miss Heidi Hansen.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council Members, Heidi Hansen, Economic Vitality Director. I appreciate the opportunity to ask a question. And actually, Councilmember Salas and Mayor DC, you were reading my mind. I was hoping that Dr. Egenthaler wouldn't mind if I had our Discover Flagstaff team take the video portion of his PowerPoint and the speaking parts and put it together on its own so that we can actually put it onto the city website. We can then do a social post for this and have them know the link that they can go to get this information. Again, they can stream always the entire meeting, as we all know, and all of the presenters tonight were terrific. I just feel that the doctor's information is a little bit different about stopping the spread or what we can do on our efforts that we could actually help to message that even greater. So I appreciate that he's willing to allow us to use it, but I don't believe we need, I believe I can take the information from this streaming event and have our team work with Jessica Drum and Discover Flagstaff to do that for us if you are all interested in that happening. Thank you.
Yeah, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, Ms. Hanson, good to see you. And yeah, however I can help out too. And happy to also present to other groups in Flagstaff, because this is, we're part of this community. I want to have these discussions, and hopefully I can continue to help out.
Well, excellent. Do we have any other comments or questions for Dr. Engelthal? Well, again, thank you so much for the presentation and able to share that with us. This is extremely valuable for all of us and all of our community. So again, my gratitude and my thanks.
Yeah, of course, anytime, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, it's definitely a pleasure to talk with you guys. You know how to reach me. Some of you have reached out to me, and I'm here and happy to continue the conversation. So thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. And I believe that ends our COVID-19 update. Am I correct in that?
Mayor Deasy, members of council, this is Andy Bertelson, and it does conclude our update. And we anticipated this being a very robust discussion in preparation for this evening. And thank you for so much for allowing that and working with us on this partner presentation, as well as the update from staff. So thank you so much, and look forward to working together as a community.
Thank you, Mr. Bertelson. All right, well then, looks like we are down to agenda item number 11, which is for our informational items and reports from council and staff, and future agenda item requests. I will just go down the list here and we can see if we have some updates from our council. And I will start with Vice Mayor Daggett.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a request, and this is based on a lot of conversation going on social media regarding artists providing work for vacant building, vacant windows. If I believe that the Daily Sun or some media outlet in Flagstaff is planning on covering this. And I would just like to encourage staff to share as much information as you can, because there seems to be a good deal of interest in what the city is doing with this project.
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. I will go to Councilmember Aslan.
I have nothing this evening, Mayor.
Thank you. And my apologies, City Manager Clifton, did you have your hand raised?
Well, I did, and I took it back down. I'm hesitant to suggest this, but because I know this is a to and from portion of the agenda, and we're typically not prepared to respond. We are prepared to respond to the comments from the Vice Mayor just now, very briefly, recognizing that the intent here is not to have any protracted dialogue. I chatted earlier with our city attorney, and I think Dave McIntyre with our team is prepared to offer some, or perhaps Eliza, pardon me, some very limited response just to let council know what can be provided and what to expect in the future, if that's acceptable. And I see that Eliza Kretzman is prepared to offer some very limited comments. Sterling, you could rein us in if we stray too far here, please.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. I'm Eliza Kretzman, your Beautification Arts and Sciences Manager. Thank you for the inquiry, Vice Mayor Daggett. So I just wanted to provide very brief background on this project. It is a small pilot public art project paying artists to beautify vacant spaces. It seems to be confused with an economic development project in some of the public conversations. So I will continue to work to clarify that. It is a public art project, while it has aspects of economic development as well. The project is funded by our Bed, Board, and Beverage tax funds. And as council knows, these are protected for these purposes by ordinance and confirmed by Flagstaff voters for these purposes. The pilot is $10,000 or less. It is supported by the Beautification and Public Art Commission. And it is based on best practices for similar projects from communities across the nation, such as Scottsdale, Santa Fe, Houston. Many places implement these projects. So the pilot is to help see if this is a good fit for Flagstaff. So we've been providing information to the public. We will continue to do so. There is an Arizona Daily Sun article that we anticipate. And we are also happy to prepare a summary for council or bring this back as an official item if desired as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kretzman. All right, Councilmember McCarthy, do you have an update?
Yeah, just as a follow-up to the Vice Mayor's comments, I just want to stress that this project is being done with BBB taxes and not with general fund taxes. I've seen some criticism of this project on social media, but I think it's important to note that this is funding that's dedicated for this type of thing. Other than that, I don't have any other updates for tonight. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Salas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing tonight. I just wish you and our colleagues on council and Team Flagstaff that hopefully 2021 will bring you and your loved ones abundant joy, prosperity, and wellness.
Thank you, Councilwoman Salas. Councilmember Shimoni.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you everybody for a good meeting for 2021. Whoop, whoop. Good stuff, everybody. Just a couple things really quick. I just wanted to let you all know that I had a good talk with City Manager about transportation and also our engineering team, Mr. Barrett, Mr. Bauman, Mr. Ince, and others about transportation and bringing that discussion to council. So that will be coming as part of a conversation by that department, I believe in a couple of months. And so I just wanted to give everyone a heads up. And that also we all received an email about the Babbitt House located at that church parcel that's going to be developed, the Catholic church that's going to be, I believe, senior living, affordable senior living. And I just thought that, you know, personally, of the options presented in the email, I think option C, moving it to the Mogollon Workyard, makes the only sense to me personally. I'd be happy to see what other options might be available to preserve that house on site. But I'm wondering if City Manager, there's a way to see if there's council majority to issue a letter of support from the City of Flagstaff to work with the developer, not necessarily slow down their plans, but just see what we can do to save that parcel. and maybe we can issue a letter. What are your thoughts, City Manager?
Mayor DC, may I respond?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Shimoni. We're aware of the interest, obviously, and we're having some meetings here later this week. It's a very nuanced topic, the historic preservation of the Babbitt House being one very important component, which we will be addressing. Other important components of that project include, of course, affordable housing and parking. I would suggest that if it's okay, Councilmember Shimoni, we stay tuned until we get a little bit more information, and we can report back to council quickly, which we will. And a letter of support sounds like a great idea. I would just ask that we have a little more time to vet this thing internally, get our ducks in a row, and we'll come back to council either with this as some sort of abbreviated action item or whatever our city clerk instructs us to do, but we're fully prepared to do that.
Excellent. Thank you so much, City Manager. And yeah, I'd be interested in that, that project is on a timeline, and I think this is already a little bit late in the game to be talking about this, but I appreciate your focus on that, and I guess I'll look forward to your updates in the near future.
Absolutely.
That's all I had. Cheers to Election Day in Georgia, and cheers to democracy, and cheers to 2021. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. And we have Councilmember Sweet. Do you have any updates?
I do. Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone. A brief update on my business downtown. Things have been bustling, record-breaking holiday season for me. And I just wanted to thank everyone for supporting local this year. And let's see, yesterday I met with Seth with the firefighters and had a great meeting on their concerns and what City Council can and cannot do to help them. And tomorrow I have a meeting with Steve Finch, Northern Arizona Lodging, Tourism, and Restaurant Association. And I'm just really excited to start talking to the community and seeing how I can help and diving into my commissions and boards. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Well, I don't have much for big information updates, but I do want to say I'm excited for 2021, and I hope everyone had a good, safe New Year, and that we are in a upward trajectory, I feel like, and I'm very happy about having that light at the end of the tunnel and getting some levels of normalcy back. So I'm excited for the future, and I'm also excited to get my vaccine when it's my turn. So aside from that, yeah, thank you all, and I really appreciated this information session with COVID. Thank you for organizing that. It was very informative. So with that, I believe we are, I'm adjourning this meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.